Well, good afternoon. We will start the subcommittee meeting, the Subcommittee on Public Education. Senator Peterson will be our entertainer this evening.
He'll be our last senator.
And am I correct that this is our very final meeting before crossover, and then we will be...
Yikes.
Well, we will be back after crossover with House Bill, so no need to fret and no need to cry. We will be together again. Just to highlight some of the basic protocol for this afternoon, as we've been doing in previous weeks, we will, of course, have opportunity for individuals to speak publicly for or against any of the legislation that is in front of us. We will likely put time limits just so that we can get through the many, many materials we have in an expeditious manner. We also ask that you keep your comments very concise. Just remember to focus on the legislation itself rather than offering testimony on extraneous materials that may or may not be directly relevant to the bill. We ask that you stay focused on the content of the legislation and make your viewpoints known in that regard, and that would be very wonderful for everybody here. If we can do roll call.
Senator Peake?
Here.
Senator Donovan?
Here.
Senator Locke? Senator Howell?
Here.
Senator Hashmi?
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So our first sign-in is from Senator McDougall, and it is with SB 896.
876, Madam Chairman. 76.
Did I say something else? I'm sorry.
Madam Chairman, I will be brief. This is fairly self-explanatory. During the year, well, first of all, the school district that Senator Donovan and I share is one of the few school districts, if not the only full county, that was in person education through pretty much the entire pandemic period. We heard from many individuals' concerns about whether they should be able to make the choice for their child receiving a COVID vaccination or not in order to attend school. And the bill pretty much says on line 68 and 79 that no child shall be denied admission to kindergarten through 12th grade if they don't receive a COVID-19 vaccination, and it references on lines 139 and 140, the State Board of Health shall not adopt any regulation that would require it for school attendance.
Thank you. Senator, are there any questions or comments from our committee members? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this legislation? Is there anyone in opposition to this legislation? Is anyone interested in this legislation at all?
Very important.
Second.
We have a motion to report the bill, but I do have a question for you before we do that. I was waiting to see if we had any public testimony. Senator, I am concerned about lines 139 to 40, that the State Board of Health shall not adopt any regulation to require immunization against COVID-19 for school attendance. We've seen that this is a public health crisis with the COVID pandemic. More than 1 million individuals have died. We've seen increasing infection rates. We don't know where the trajectory of this virus is. We've seen mutations and adaptations. What if we are again in the midst of a public health crisis where the vaccines we currently have in place are not going to be sufficient to address it? What if we have any severe need to make sure that we are able to respond and react appropriately to the spread of the virus? Aren't we, and don't we rely on our State Board of Health to make these public health decisions for us? Are we putting constrictions in place that would inhibit our state board, our medical professionals from providing the kind of guidance that we necessarily need them to make for us.
Madam Chairman, I might phone a friend with Dr. Donovan, but I would say this is not in reference to any other regulation, but this is for school attendance. And so we made choices in many jurisdictions around the Commonwealth about whether our children could attend in person before there was a vaccine. I think that choice was wrong. Children should have been in school in person, receiving the education, receiving the socialization, interaction with other children, and I think it was a bad choice for them not to be physically present during school. I don't think a parent should have to make the choice of whether their child attends in-person public education or get the vaccine that they have concerns about. That should be between the parent and the doctor in reference to COVID. I am not a medical professional. I'm not going to pretend I am, but the information, particularly about the impact to children, is not as voluminous as we have with other vaccines that we have all made the determination are important. And I know when I took Reagan to have her 11-year-old checkup just the Friday before session, we had 4 shots. She was not happy with me for any one of them, but they were all very important and ones that we do know the long-term impacts of. I think parents should be able to make that choice.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Senator.
my problem with this bill is those parents are making a choice not only for their child, but for other people's children, as well as for staff. There are people for whom COVID is extremely dangerous, and having them exposed to unvaccinated people, I think, is unfair to them and puts them at an unnecessary risk.
Thank you, Senator.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, please go ahead.
I would respond that there is very little evidence to show that there's vertical transmission from children across the world where children were in school and weren't vaccinated. Almost all of the infections of teachers that worked with them came from teachers' interactions outside of the school when they were traced. The vaccines for children are not reliably showing longevity of immunity from the vaccination, and there are more risks in the pediatric population for the vaccination. So I'm happy to see that we're moving away from this idea that I have to control what you do in order for me to be safe. Really, vaccines work to protect the person that receives them. And, we've had a very different change in the trajectory of COVID, thank God, because of herd immunity that's a combination of natural and vaccination, and because we have medications to treat it now. But there's really not evidence that there's a risk of a child not getting this going to school. I think there was an enormous amount of anxiety when adults were mandated to get the vaccine, and that's even more so for children who have more risks of complications with the vaccine. So if people want to get vaccinated, this doesn't obstruct that. We don't require vaccination for the flu, which is the most equivalent respiratory illness for school. So I think that this is appropriate to kind of begin to build some more trust between medical authority and parents and families in Virginia. So again, I'll renew my motion to recommend reporting.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator, please go ahead.
to speak to the bill as well. To quote our president, the pandemic is over, and for 2 years ago, we're hearing about the risk of shortage of ventilators and hospital rooms and people to treat. And I mean, that's not even discussed on the news now. I mean, how many people have contracted it? We were getting daily updates, weekly updates as to how many people were hospitalized, et cetera. I haven't seen those numbers in 6 months to a year about daily hospitalizations, people on ventilators, anything, or deaths. I don't even see any reports on deaths related to COVID. And I mean, I read the paper, I look at the internet every day, and these things are not mentioned at all that I see. And then to address Senator Howell, I mean, the people who are concerned about COVID who have underlying problems, they get the vaccination, and they get the vaccination to protect themselves. And what we have seen is even people who are vaccinated are getting the virus. So the fact that if we force our children to get the vaccination, to attend a public school, they can still catch the virus and then transmit it to a teacher who may also have the vaccine and still contract the virus. I don't see that there is any evidence, medical or otherwise, or statistics currently that would justify mandating every child be forced to get this vaccine to attend school.
Madam Chairman, if I may.
If I could just respond quickly to Senator Peake. Senator Peake, thank you for your comments. You pointed to something that's absolutely wonderful. We are not seeing the rate of deaths. We are not seeing the rates of infection. We're not seeing the rates of hospitalizations or the rates of individuals on ventilators. And clearly that points to the success of the immunization program that we've been able to do, not just in Virginia, but across the country, across the globe. I think it's to the credit of our medical professionals, to our researchers who were able to develop and deliver and deploy a vaccine with such efficiency and have saved countless of lives. And, you know, we lost many beloved individuals in our community to the virus prior to the development of the vaccine, and I think we ought to give much credit to our public health community and officials who are able to save lives accordingly. Senator Donovan, you had a comment?
Just really one follow-up that I think we have to keep in mind. We must make sure there are never again obstacles to our children attending school. We have seen the very severe consequences, and we need not create any obstacles to make decisions that would thwart our children attending school.
If there are no further comments before the committee, we have a motion on the floor, a motion to recommend reporting the bill, SB 876. Is there a second?
I'd second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. 3 noes and 2 ayes. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I have the recommendation is going to be not to report. So what will be the posture when it comes to the committee next week?
Yes, I apologize. The recommendation will be that the bill failed in this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, next on our sign-up sheet is Senator Reeves. And Senator Reeves, I had a request from Senator Cosgrove. Is that correct? You've spoken to Senator Cosgrove that we incorporate SB 911 into your SB
1186.
1186?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if the record will reflect, we'll be incorporating Senator Cosgrove's bill into 1186.
Do we need to vote on that?
Oh, yes. Do we need to vote?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you. Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know I've been in front of education a lot this year, and I don't mean to, but
We like you here.
things pop up. Many of you know I've been a coach high school sports for a long time. Both my children were engaged in competitive athletics, and there's a real problem with parents and their kids, especially young girls, having men or grown-age boys deciding that they want to participate in women's sports. And so what this bill does is it sets up some framework for elementary, secondary, public schools. It does not include any private schools, when they go through their first, it goes when they go through to get their physical each year to determine whether or not they can play in competitive sports. They're going to base what sport they play into, either women's or men's, based on their anatomy, their biological sex. And so there's some definitive terms in here that go through interscholastic, intramural, club athletics, some of those things within the bill itself to help define that. Madam Chair, members of the committee, nothing prevents women from competing in men's sports. When I was a football coach, one of my kickers was a female, and oftentimes she would outkick the boys. But it would prevent males from competing in, let's say, swimming events and some of those things. It would not prevent any individual that is transgender or going through that process from competing in any sports, in the sense of if they're going through that process, and they would have to play in men's sports if they had that anatomy, I guess, if you want to use that term. There was a study done by the United States Air Force recently that had come out, and that's really, I read the whole study, and it talks about as transgender women who have gone through this process, still after a year of hormone therapy, still finds that they're way ahead of their counterparts in competition. And you all probably remember the Olympic Committee coming up with, and Dr. Donovan could probably help because I don't understand some of the physiological things, but certain amounts of testosterone and some of the other things that they're using to make those transitions happen, where it has to be below a certain level. And the study was specifically done on members of the United States Air Force that were going through this study, and it just proved exactly what we all kind of know to be, that males typically are stronger. They build more muscle mass based on testosterone, and the opposite, same as women when they are on estrogen and those sort of things on replacement therapy. So this just makes it very, very clear. I've heard from a lot of parents on this issue, and that is the bill.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. If I could just ask a couple of questions, and do you have questions?
I was just going to say, Madam Chair, this is very similar, although not identical, to my bill 962. And I don't want to roll my bill in because mine does not include some of the other things, but I think all the testimony is going to be the same from the parents and the civic groups. So let's have all the testimony applied to both bills and my 962 as well. And I would just state, Madam Chair, that my 962 differs. It's in a different section, and I don't require, my bill does not require any kind of medical authorization or statements from a doctor, and it just says that males, biological males, shall not play in female interscholastic sports. And then provides a little bit of the civil action below that, but it's a much more stripped down version,
right,
and does not require the physical examination or medical examination.
Thank you. I would like you to present your bills separately, but we will not hear testimony, certainly. But I think the distinction is that, Senator Reeves, you've also got intercollegiate in here, whereas Senator
Mine's just
is just
high school.
K-12,
Yes.
right? Okay, so that's the key distinction. I want to make sure we.
But I think all the testimony will be the same.
Yes. So my question starts with that intercollegiate issue, the idea that Virginia then would be offering a regulation around NCAA's policies. Is that, am I correct in that, Senator?
It would only deal with intramural, the non-competitive NCAA. So club sports when you're in college, intramural sports, but not where you're on scholarship in those. So not the NCAA part.
Thank you. So that's part of my ignorance. So NCAA does not regulate any of the intercollegiate, intramural.
That's all based on the schools.
Okay. But in essence, then this bill would be taking action on adults as well, college students who are adults.
Well, you turn 18, you're an adult. My son was 18 in high school, so yes.
Okay. And potentially individuals who are in their 20s as well, if they're playing
Sure.
intramurals. Okay, thank you. I wanted that clarification. Is there anybody here who, I'm sorry, before we go, is there anybody on committee who wants to speak or ask questions prior to hearing testimony? Let's hear from the public. Is there anyone in support of the bill? And if you could state your name and identify your organization, and we will limit to 5 minutes the testimony in total. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Todd Gacki on behalf of the Family Foundation. And I think that the patron has described the bill fairly well. We know that this is an issue that is national, that's also expected to be here in Virginia as well, both at the K through 12 and collegiate levels. And allowing males who self-identify as female threatens the safety of those young female athletes and could potentially create an unfair environment. Now, I know that there's going to be when we speak to the K through 12 portion, I know there's going to be a representative from the VHSL who's going to come and speak to this bill, and I know because we rode up in the elevator together and laughed about it. But he's going to present some policies that they have, which say that a complete list of a student's prescribed or over-the-counter medications that help them present as the opposite sex, as well as written verification from an appropriate healthcare professional of the student's consistent gender identification and expression are already required. But what we know based on studies is that's just not helpful, that's not sufficient because of what the patron has already talked about there being a physiological difference. Joanna Harper, who is a transgender athlete who receives the reassignment treatment, said, "I've been on hormone therapy for 15 years and I carry more muscle mass than a woman my size." And then he referenced a study that I also talk about. Let me give you an example. My son does pole vault, and which is a really cool sport, by the way. And he is in high school, and he's at about 13 feet. And so when you get into the collegiate level, females are jumping or pole vaulting anywhere from 14 to 15 feet. The males are pole vaulting anywhere from 18 to 19 feet. That's a significant difference. And so just think about a biological male who competes in pole vault who could potentially be taking away a position from a super female athlete that could very well be jumping and winning competitions. So I think that this legislation is needed to provide those parameters and make sure that we're making sure there's safety and making sure that there's fairness for our female athletes. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just help me look at a question. How many transgender athletes have we had in Virginia in our K-12?
So there are currently, according to the last data I saw, was about 29 to 33, somewhere around in there.
In this academic year?
This was last year. So I don't know about those numbers if they stay consistent. But I think the point is, we see this as a national trend, and do we want to risk the safety of a young female athlete? We should do something now to make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to have an example of a volleyball player in another state where a 5'10" male athlete is playing volleyball on the female volleyball team, smacks a spike probably anywhere from 80 miles an hour, injures a young female in the head and sends her to the emergency room. So I think we want to make sure we prevent those cases from happening going forward and to protect fairness as well.
So according to my research, over the past decade or so since we've had a policy for transgender athletes in Virginia, it's a total number of maybe 24 students over the last decade or so, and I think this current year we maybe have 5 or 6 students. So 5 or 6 students in the overall very large percentage of students in Virginia. So just wanted to put that in perspective about the numbers that we are talking about in terms of Virginia high school athletics. So thank you very much. And we have another person here to speak.
I'm Karis Mitchell with the Virginia Catholic Conference, and we also support this bill, and I have nothing further to add. He stated it very well, but I just wanted to add our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers in opposition to the bill? And again, we will limit comment to 5 minutes.
I'll be quicker than that, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. I'm sorry.
I said it's 5 minutes total.
Oh, okay. Yes, sure. Thank you. Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. We do oppose, our board has taken position to oppose 1186, and can I go ahead and say Senate Bill 911 also?
Yes,
Is that what it is?
yes, please go
Okay,
ahead.
that's it. Thank you.
911, that's the correct number, is that right?
I think it is.
That's Senator Cosgrove.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, well.
962.
We incorporate, so
Okay.
are you in opposition
Oh, I
to?
didn't realize that bill was in committee today. Okay.
We're assuming it will be.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, 962.
962,
That'll
yeah.
be okay.
911, we've incorporated already.
Much better, Bill.
Thank you.
Oh, Madam Chair, can I just say one more thing? The last speaker mentioned, so I think you can also talk about this situation from the other side. Like, I was a part of a co-ed beach volleyball team, and, both males and females play on those teams. And I was actually spiked by a female and ended up going to the hospital. So it could happen both ways.
Well, we are happy that it all turned out for the best. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Narissa Rahaman with Equality Virginia. I'm here speaking on behalf of a personal story from a student athlete in Henrico County who wanted to be here but couldn't because of the anxiety the debate around all of these bills are causing. She says, at the beginning of my senior year of high school, I struggled to find my own sense of belonging. Remember, my class is the one that was shut down during our freshman year and suffered from being isolated for more than half of our high school career because of the pandemic. As the world began to open up, I longed to be a part of something bigger, to find a larger group and to move my body. I wanted to be around people that would encourage me to push myself and that I could then, in turn, help them too. So I decided to join my school's volleyball team, and during that time, I had the opportunity to apply myself in a way I've never tried before. I was just so excited to simply be there. No one really knew I was transgender, and it also felt like no one really needed to know or even cared. Everyone was there for the same reason, to challenge themselves, to work as a team, and to make something of their high school experience. Everyone on my team came from very diverse and complex backgrounds. Everyone had their own experiences, their own identities, and their own way of how they presented themselves. My way just happened to be presenting myself as I am, a girl who wanted to play volleyball and have a team experience. No one on my team would ever known I am trans unless I told them, which I eventually did. It was during one of our trips to Wawa to get snacks between school and practice that I told my teammates I am transgender. When I came out to these new friends, there was no animosity, no looks of disgust, there was just love. Yes, they had questions, and some of them didn't understand at first, but the difference was that they remained open-minded and respectful. I have never felt so free in my entire life than I did in that moment. And after that, we went to practice and did what volleyball players usually do, prepare for our next game. My genetic makeup and my identity had and still has nothing to do with how I play or how I treat people. As a trans young woman, I'm not better or worse than any girl on the court. I'm just a girl on a team doing my best at the thing I love and finding myself in a supportive community, being with my teammates. I encourage the committee to vote no on all three bills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Brianna Diaz with the ACLU of Virginia. We oppose this bill, all three of them, and would just echo the comments that have been made by our partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Maggie Hansford from Prince William. I'm a mom of 3 students in our schools, as well as a speech pathologist in our schools. I work in our elementary schools, and this is not a problem. If we really want to talk about school safety, this isn't it. I think we all know at this table how we need to ensure our students, our children are safe, and this is not it. This enrages me as a mom and a teacher that this body comes together and there's politicians here thinking the only thing that I can do to make kids safe is to ensure biological boys aren't playing in our sports. That's not what we need to be talking about right now.
Thank you.
I oppose all three.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I don't see our VHSL representative. Maybe I'm just, thank you. if we could just ask some questions. Thank you very much for being here today.
Certainly. Mark Hubbard on behalf of Virginia High School League.
Thank you. My question is, as the most recent speaker just said, is this a problem in our schools?
We do not perceive it as a problem, and Senator, the numbers that you shared are generally accurate. There have been 25 waivers granted in the last 6 years. There were a handful of waivers granted in the years prior to that since we have had the policy.
Okay, thank you. I did take a look again, just to refresh my memory, at the VHSL policy that's on record and that is being used across the Commonwealth, and I think it's very clear and very specific as to how the organization, how VHSL reviews any application. So there is an application process, there is a review process. There are fairly strict guidelines, too. If I could just read some of those guidelines, a student athlete has undergone sex reassignment before puberty or has undergone sex reassignment after puberty following under all of these other conditions, and it lists very specific conditions. And so there is a very careful process. Would you agree with that statement? There's a very careful process of reviewing any applications and providing basically a waiver for a student athlete to compete according to their gender identity. Am I correct in that?
Yes, Senator, you are correct. And our policy was modeled after the NCAA policy.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Is there Senator, would you like to make final comments?
Madam Chair, I will just tell you, the numbers might be low, but and I agree with the mother that came. You know, my son never had a problem with any of the transgender students or anything else, but I will tell you, I worry just as much about the girls playing football as I do about my daughter, when she was swimming, having to swim against a grown man who would always just beat her. And so I think there's a balance there. And I think that's up to this committee to decide if that's where the balance is.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments?
Chairman, I have a comment.
Yes, please.
I will say I have a real heart for the young women that are competing, especially in individual sports, that have worked for it all their lives, Title IX protected kinds of circumstances. Because I think there are instances where, especially if they have if they've had exposure to different hormones, that a genetic male, even though they are now female and taking the hormones, has some advantages. But I have to be honest, I'm trying really hard. I don't exactly see how this bill gets to that. I don't know exactly how to solve this problem, but the team sports and club sports and those kinds of things seem to be more of a camaraderie thing than than something that's removing the opportunity of a young woman who's worked all of her life to compete and succeed.
Madam Chair, Senator Donovan, I would just respond. Swimming is both an individual sport and a team sport. There's relays, same with track and field. And so there are individual sports within those team sports. And anytime you have a male competing against a female, barring that female being on testosterone replacement or anything else, there's a reason why athletic teams do not allow you to juice, for the specific purpose of getting a gainful advantage on your competition. And so this whole transgender issue and men playing in women's sports has brought that up again. I think we didn't let some people in the Baseball Hall of Fame because they were juicing and taking all those things and hitting home runs in male sports. So we're going to have to decide this issue. This bill may not get at this issue. Maybe Senator Peake's bill may get at the issue. But as these things continue to happen and young girls get trophies taken away that we've seen, I don't have the solution. This was part of the way we were looking at it. It may not be that way, but I will tell you, there are going to be more parents coming to you that have these kids that have spent, as a swim dad, hours and years of a child that spent competitive swimming, and every time she swam against a male in practice, they whooped her.
So, are you finished?
I agree with what you're saying. This bill, how do club sports that are really about camaraderie fit in with that?
Madam Chair, Senator Dolan, I disagree with you. I played club sports. I played college sports competitively, football, and I played club sports. And I will just tell you, they're highly competitive. Most club sports, if you look at UVA lacrosse club, those players that play that club sport probably could go play Division I lacrosse at a lot of other schools. They choose to go to UVA because of the academics, but those folks can get drafted.
Any other questions, Senators? Senator, I would just respectfully disagree that we don't have men playing in girls' sports. We have trans girls playing in girls' sports. And a trans girl, therefore, would not be taking testosterone. And so, if anything, there is the hormones are designed to suppress the testosterones. I'll share also that I've received an overwhelming number of emails regarding this bill as well as the other bills that we have in front of us today. Overwhelmingly, the emails that I've received have asked me to oppose this legislation. Very few parents have reached out to express that their child in competitive sports have been at a disadvantage because of a trans athlete. As I shared earlier, we have very, very few. It's a minuscule percentage when compared to overall students and athletes in Virginia. A very small percentage are actually trans athletes. So I would just respectfully share that with you. Is there a motion on the floor? Is there a substitute motion since that motion did not receive a second?
Move that Senate Bill 1186 be passed be PBI'd.
Second. All in favor that it be PBI'd?
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Senator Donovan?
I'm an aye.
You're an aye, that would be PBI'd. Okay, 4 ayes and 1 no. And again, we have incorporated SB 911 into this bill, so that bill is PBI'd as well. Senator Peake, I will ask you to just kind of jump the line and quickly present your bill since it's fairly similar, and I think we can take quick action on that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my bill is a much more streamlined version, and my 962 only applies to K through 12 as we discussed, and it doesn't have any effect on co-ed sports. My bill states that if the school is sponsoring, and I guess technically if the school is sponsoring it, they're playing in competition in the district, a male team and a female team, that biological males do not play in the female sport. And it does not require any physical examination or anything like that. I think when kids go to school, we got to present our birth certificates, and they would be able to check it from the birth certificate, how they registered in school, or when they signed up to go to that school, they register, and they've got to provide the information. So we're not invading their privacy that way physically or requiring any of those examinations. And a couple of interesting things. But, well, this isn't a problem. Well, it is a growing problem nationwide, and we don't always wait. Hopefully smart legislators and smart general assemblies don't wait till a problem becomes a problem. When you see that there may be something out there that's a growing issue, you try and address it and stop it before it becomes a bad problem or a pressing issue. And I would point out to what Madam Chair said, well, you thought there were 29 cases in the last 10 to 15 years. I don't mean to misquote you. I don't know exactly what you said. But then the witness spoke, and he said, well, we've had 25 in the last 6 years. So we might have had 29 in the last 10 to 15 based on what Madam Chair thought. But in reality, we've had 25 in the last 6. It is a growing issue. It's not going to go away. Transgenders are becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And it's we have more and more addressing transgender issues and more transitioning. And I'll tell you, I started paying attention to it in 2018. And it was a story out of Connecticut. There was a girl high school runner who was tops in the state. She won all the girls' meets, and there was a transgender athlete who entered and won the state championship. High school, Connecticut, public high school, 2018. And the girl was a sophomore. She'd won all the other track events, but when the transgender athlete got in there, she finished second. So she would have had the state records, the state championship. Transgender, and this is in high school, so I don't know when he started taking the hormones or to what extent he had, but he won. And he took the titles. And now you have them, and then you also have them taking scholarships. So Title IX, women fought so hard for Title IX for so long. It is now the 50th year anniversary of Title IX, where women fought to get the exact same number of scholarships in college sports that men had, so that they would be on the equal footing, so that they would have as many opportunities to get girls to go to college on scholarships. And now what you have are biological males playing sports in high school, taking sports positions away from girls who would be playing them and could be winning those scholarships. How women or feminists can justify Title IX and what they fought so hard for 50 years now, for equality in sports, for men and women and scholarship and opportunities, to then give those spots to biological males. It just seems highly inconsistent to me. And we talked about, and so that's more of my issue, the opportunity issues, the equality issues, and of course we do have the safety issues, but I just look at this problem, this issue is not going to go away, and it's going to continue to grow. And I hate to see, I have 2 daughters who played sports in high school, and they got to play. If a male took their spot so that they would not have gotten to play, either sat on the bench while a male played, or whether transgender female played, or didn't make the team, I would have been irritated. Man, I ask that you pass this bill.
Thank you, Senator Peake. Were there any comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator.
what disturbs me is to have someone refer to transgender individuals as an issue. Transgender people are not issue. They are kids deserving of our respect and our courtesy, and to not be reduced to being an issue. And that is why someone had to come here and to read a statement from an individual, because she suffers from anxiety from having probably been bullied because of who she is, because of references to being an issue as opposed to being a person deserving of our courtesy and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and I would align myself with your comments. I appreciate your comments on that. Senator Howell, were you going to?
No, I just want to join myself with my seatmate here. I totally agree with her.
And just respectfully ask that all committee members refrain from misgendering any individual, that we acknowledge the gender identity of the individuals with whom we are speaking or speaking about. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to report.
Hearing no second, is there a substitute motion?
Move that Senate Bill 962 be passed by indefinitely.
Moved and seconded that we pass by recommend that this bill be passed by indefinitely. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
I'm going to abstain, Madam Chairman, and I'm going to ask the patron to think about substituting a bill that would address individual sports activities, because I think that's where we are hearing about the injustice that he spoke about women that work their whole lives, or young girls, daughters, and you know, I think there's a problem there, but I think it's much more specific than this bill, and I will therefore abstain.
So we have 3 ayes, 1 abstention, 1 no. Thank you, Senator Peake. And next on the docket is Senator Bell with 2 bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you want me to go in order, or do you care?
Your heart's desire, Senator.
All right.
Whatever you wish.
There is a substitute on 825, if I could ask if you would address that.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All in favor? Aye. Please go ahead, Senator Bell.
I've had the pleasure of serving as the chair of the Board of Visitors at the Virginia School of the Deaf and Blind for the last couple of years. Senator Hoshmi actually serves on that board with me. It really is a labor of love. One of the things we've done in this is tried to look at how we can help the school succeed and help it to work better. Through review, we discovered one of the issues we have is when we're doing background checks, fingerprinting is required. They often go to state police, and they have to submit it through the FBI system. We found some problems with it because currently under Virginia Code, there's an oversight. It gives that authority if it's to school divisions. The School of the Deaf and Blind doesn't fall under a school division. I did a bill last year, and it has a reenactment this year that would actually place directly under the governor. It's currently under the Secretary of Education. This bill is fairly simple. It was just, we worked with the state police, and they had actually conferred with the FBI about the language that we needed in the code, and I thank DLS for working with us as well to try to research this and make sure we hit it in the right places to try to make sure we don't have this problem. So when we hire people, we can make sure we do an appropriate background check, which I think is very important given the fact we are making sure we're protecting some of our most vulnerable children in the Commonwealth. Also want to, with these 2 bills, say that the administration has worked very closely with me, Secretary Gadara and also Assistant Secretary Snow, and I thank them greatly for their support of the school.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions or comments from the committee members? Is there anyone to speak in support of the legislation? Thank you. Please come ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. For the record, my name is Mackenzie Snow, Deputy Secretary of Education, and I'm here to testify in support of an agency-requested bill, SB 825. And very briefly, as the Senator indicated, this bill clarifies that VSDB should have the authority to conduct background checks on its employees so that they can provide a safe learning environment for all students. Just by way of background, until 2016, VSDB was under licensure through DBHDS, and thus did background checks through DSS or social services. In 2016, the Attorney General's office had determined that one state agency cannot license another state agency, but they continued to conduct background checks through social services. And this past year, background checks were conducted in partnership with the Virginia State Police, but VSDB, as you can see, needs the state authority to conduct background checks on its own employees, and this bill would clarify and provide that. So we urge the subcommittee to report this bill, and we thank Senator Bell and Madam Chair for their leadership and also for both of your services on the VSDB Board of Visitors.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Mike Asip, and members of the committee. Mike Asip, a member of the Board of Visitors of Virginia School for Deaf and Blind, and we fully support this bill and thank the Senator for patroning.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition? Is there a motion on the floor? It's been moved and seconded that we report the bill. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We have 5 ayes. And you have one more bill, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one's 826. It's similar, and again, part of the review, what we found is we do have a campus security, but this was not covered in the code specifically because, again, most school security is covered separately as part of a school division. So what we did is we researched this to authorize this campus security, which provides, I think, again, another very important protection. I don't know if you've ever been to to school. I know Senator Hashmi has, but it's a fairly large campus, so it's pretty easy for people to get on that campus, and we really do need the security that's there to provide the safety of these children. Last thing I'll mention on this for the security part is the children reside there 5 days a week. They come in on usually Sunday or Monday, and then they stay and go home on Friday. So there's parents are entrusting those children to the Commonwealth of Virginia to stay at this school, and I think we need to authorize this the security police there in the proper way. That's what we seek to do to make sure that we are frankly authorizing them in a legal way. We don't believe there's any fiscal impact. All the cost of this is already covered under their budget. We've been paying for this. It's not a new thing. We've had it. It just frankly wasn't authorized due to this oversight.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Are there any comments or questions from committee members? Anyone who wishes to speak in support? We got a thumbs up from a board member from VSDB.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Again, Mackenzie Snow, Deputy Secretary of Education, in support of this agency-requested bill. It's another seemingly technical but highly important bill to clarify that VSDB has the authority to maintain a police force. This was in code and since 2013, and we believe inadvertently removed in 2022. And again, we believe this is an oversight, and we appreciate your efforts to correct this through legislation and urge the committee to report it.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor? It's been moved and seconded that we recommend for reporting. All in favor say aye. Aye. We have 5 ayes. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your good work as chair of the committee for the VSDB.
It's an honor. Thank the committee. I'll try next time.
Next on the docket is Senator Normant.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Nice to be with you. I have a couple of bills, Madam Chairman, and if I could do Senate Bill 1359 first, which is a school threat assessment education, and I think there is an amendment.
We have an amendment in front of us. All in favor? Aye. 1359.
Madam Chairman, the amendment, as you will see, strikes part of line 18 and all of line 19 and 20, which eliminates the mandatory provision that they work with law enforcement agencies. What, excuse me, what remains is pretty simple. It's on line 28 through line 30. And it provides that any new member to a threat assessment team shall complete an initial threat assessment training before they become active in it, and then that incumbent members every 3 years will receive threat assessment on that as a refresher. Obviously, this is somewhat in response to what I would like to think are aberrations, but seems to be more consistent that are happening within schools. I think many of us remain shocked that what is going on within the school systems, and being the father of a school teacher and whose student teacher was the young lady that got shot in Newport News, and she has remained her mentor since she has been teaching. That's the bill.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? We have.
I didn't bring any troops, so it is spontaneous.
Madam Chair, Andrew Goddard, Virginia Centre for Public Safety. We strongly support the bill. We strongly support the concept of threat assessment teams, and we believe that threat assessment is not something which you can can do well without training, and sorry about that. So we would definitely support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee.
What's going on? Can everyone please silence their phones? I think they did it on purpose, Senator Norman.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Stacey Haney with the School Board Association. We appreciate the amendment to the bill that resolved the concerns that we had, so I thank the Senator.
Thank you. So the amendments have resolved the concerns. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't see any, is there anyone in opposition? It's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting. All in favor?
Aye.
We have 5 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My other bill is Senate Bill 1099 on it, and what this deals is with the SRA grant program that exists, and it expands it a little bit. There, for quite some period of time, there have been statutory provisions to provide grants that come from almost any source of business, ranging from gifts to direct appropriations. What this bill does, it says, subject to the authority of the board to provide for the appropriation and disbursement of grants from the fund that exists. It broadens the application of it a little bit. Right now, it is restricted to middle and high schools, which was perplexing to me. I don't know why it wasn't applicable to elementary schools, and we've seen a couple of instances where it would have been appropriate to have school security. But besides including elementary schools, it allows that school security officers, which are a statutory defined term, or other relevant safety personnel, can be awarded these grants. And so it broadens the application of it by including elementary schools. It broadens the application of it that it can be awarded for expenses, including equipment for such uniformed resource officers. And as you may be aware from other committees that have discussed it, the subject, there's a need to recruit SROs and other security personnel.
Are there any questions from the committee members?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so Senator Norman, I take it this bill and the bill we just passed of yours are designed to protect our school students in K through 12. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Senator Norman, I have just a question to clarify. So when we're talking about equipment, can you delineate what kinds of equipment we might be looking at?
I deliberately did not do that because I knew if I got into trying to articulate specifically what equipment it would be, but because it is a grant and there has to be an application to the grant, that the board who oversees the grant can make the determination as to whether or not it's appropriate and relevant equipment. I just was concerned about trying to identify it.
Thank you. So another question then, it may or may not include items such as handguns, tasers, handcuffs. Would those items be possibly permitted then if the grant process so delineates it then?
Well, in my predictable direct responses to things, because it is not defined, I would think that would certainly fall within a broad definition of equipment. But I would also say that, and if we need to tighten the language up, that in the grant application needs to specify it, I'm fine with that. But ultimately, I think the board would have to make that determination.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the patron? Anyone who wishes to speak in support of SB 1099? We have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
you don't want me to support your bill, Senator, I know it's rare that I support your bills, but
This
are
is
you
a
shocked?
shocking day.
Right?
Getting support here and from a gentleman who is traditionally against firearms. I'm like, oh my gosh, heart be still.
Madam Chair, Stacey Haney with the School Board Association. School safety is, of utmost importance to us, especially now. And as opposed to some of the other bills that this committee has seen regarding SROs, the reason that, and that we've had concerns with in the past, this bill gives school boards some additional options, opens up the funding to use for some additional things, but doesn't make it mandatory, so it maintains that local control that we're in favor of, but this gives us some additional tools and possibly some additional resources, and so we're in support of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any speakers in opposition to this bill?
You've got to balance it.
Can't win them all. Madam Chair, Andrew Goddard, Virginia Center for Public Safety. My organization and myself personally, very concerned about what's happening in our schools and the safety of our school children. I have 4 granddaughters. I'm very worried about them being in school. What I'd like to remind the committee is that the SRO program has been around for a long time. Armed response has been in schools for a very long time. We've had a lot of evaluations of the impact and efficacy of those armed officers. And unfortunately, we've had a very large amount of information which says that there's no real impact, positive impact on the safety of students from having armed officers. Many of the shootings that take place in schools, the vast majority are one-on-one shootings. A school resource officer is not going to be able to stop that. It's nothing wrong with the officer itself, but they're not going to be in the right place at the right time for the vast majority of school shootings. For the school shootings where there are larger death rates, we've seen time after time in schools, Columbine, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and finally, the most egregious in Uvalde, where school resource officers were present and yet did nothing to mitigate the circumstances that were facing our children. So I wish we would put our money into something that was going to do an actual positive impact on their safety. Not only is it not effective, but it has come up that there are a tremendous number of adverse side effects, such as an increased level of apprehension amongst students, and there's an increased level of expulsions and suspensions in schools that have SROs, especially for Black, brown, minority, LGBTQ, and disabled students. So rather than keep putting money into things that don't work, why don't we put the money into something, looking for something that does work? Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more speakers. 3. How many more speakers do we have, just so we keep an eye on the time? Okay, 3 more speakers. Possibly a 4th? Will you be speaking? Okay, so if we can make
Keep it
concise
short.
comments, thank you.
Sure. I'm Abby Phillips with the Legal Aid Justice Center. We're concerned about the vague language in the bill around what type of equipment is necessary for school-based officers and what relevant school safety personnel means. In our work at the Legal Aid Justice Center, we have found that increased police presence actually increases the surveillance, referrals to law enforcement, and criminalization of children. And that disproportionately impacts students of color and students with disability. And though we appreciate the intent of the bill is to keep schools safer, safer schools require investing in students, teachers, and support staff to provide increased social, emotional, academic, and mental health services. And that's why we ask that you oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie Hansford from Prince William. I would just like to say exactly what the last 2 speakers said. Follow the data. If this was a table full of teachers, we would be data driven. We would be looking at numbers. We would be looking at the facts. And I have yet to see any sort of data in these past few bills that actually prove the substance behind the bill. So I'm asking that we all use data-driven decision-making at this table. And if SROs, excuse me, sir, if SROs were helping, we would have seen that.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Michaelis. I'm the director of the Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety at the Department of Criminal Justice Services, and we administer this fund. This fund does not has been in existence for over 2 decades, and it's not changing the language that funds school resource officers. It's expanding the fund to fund more other school safety personnel that the school divisions may wish to put into place. Currently, the last round of FY23 funding for $22.5 million funded 275 SRO positions and 109 school security officer positions, which are hired by the school division. The other relevant personnel could be any number of school safety positions that the school division deems applicable. So I'm not here in support or defense. It's just simply to provide some clarity. As for equipment, it would be things like uniforms, or other equipment deemed necessary for those school personnel. Thank you.
So you are not speaking in support or
No, ma'am. I was just
opposition.
providing some clarity around the questions that were asked.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'll be quick. I don't want to repeat what you've already heard. John Smead with the Disability Law Center of Virginia. We have concerns about the impact on students with disabilities of increasing law enforcement presence in schools.
Thank you. Senator, do you have any final comments?
Then I
Questions from
don't have
Senator
any questions. I want to speak to the bill.
A couple of thoughts that just came to my mind, and I'm very respectful. Normally, when people oppose a piece of legislation I have, and I respect the position that what they said. First of all, I don't have data to drive it. What I do is have a lot of experience, and because both my former wife and my current daughter are teachers, and the type of law that I practice, I go from life's experiences, and I have seen so many instances in the communities where I am where the SROs have actually prevented the escalation of things getting totally out of hand within the school system. And also, if my experience has again shown that when they are confronted with a situation that they don't believe that they can handle, that they immediately have access to local law enforcement to provide additional support if they need it. Secondly, if we really are hung up over the issue of equipment, as I said earlier, I'm happy to offer an amendment that would say the specific equipment that would be purchased with the grant would have to be articulated in the application for the grant. And I just would remind you that this is a grant, and there are a variety of sources that come into funding that. So it's not necessarily a reappropriation of money that's going towards teachers or SROs or anything.
Thank you. Senator, you had a question?
Not a question, to speak to the bill.
Please go ahead.
I question my sanity sometimes and wonder what universe I am living in. And that's perfectly fine, Senator Locke, for you to question, and Hal as well. I mean, what world are y'all living in? Does no one read the paper? Does no one turn on the internet? Does no one look at anything? Have you not seen all the reports of violence in our public schools, K through 12? Do you not see every day they're highlighting a school fight? Do you not read the reports of kids videotaping other kids getting the crap beat out of them in class? Do y'all not see any of that? Am I the only person in this room that sees those things? That it's on MSN, Outlook, Internet. It's not.
Please.
Exactly. What would happen if they were not in those schools?
Public debate. Senator, if you
what
could,
would happen
Senator,
if we did not have an SRO?
Senator Peake, if you could address your comments
I
to
am
me.
talking to the entire.
If you could address them through
Madam
me,
Chair,
I appreciate
what would happen when somebody starts beating the crap out of somebody, when you have gang violence, 4 or 5 people attacking another person, and there is no officer to go, or when they start beating up a teacher? Has anyone, Madam Chair, anyone on this committee not seen those videos that they post all of the time of students attacking teachers? And adults are afraid to get involved. And sometimes, unfortunately, in Uvalde, the officer with a gun was afraid to get involved. And you had students in that classroom, Madam Chair, begging and crying and calling 911. Please send me somebody. They're shooting us in this closed classroom. And all you wanted was somebody in that classroom with a gun. One brave SRO. And you know what happened? None of them went. The only person who went was a guy with a shotgun whose wife taught at that school. And so here y'all are talking about safety in schools, and you don't want SROs in schools. With all of the school shootings, with all of the teachers getting beat up, with all of the students getting beat up, and you say it's the problem with police enforcement, or the presence of an officer scares these kids, and that's why they're not learning. And then let me just tell you something I did read on the internet this week, and it shows you what people do with statistics. And so they said, you know what, when we enforce discipline in our schools and we suspend kids and we make them behave, but if they get suspended, we've looked at the statistics, and believe it or not, shockingly, kids who don't behave in school ended up getting suspended. They end up having a higher rate of incarceration and law breaking when they're older. And I just thought, maybe let's give this a second thought. Let's think about this, Madam Chair. Maybe it's not because they got suspended once that they get arrested later. Maybe it's because we didn't discipline them enough when they were in K through 12 that they end up getting arrested later. It's a crazy thought. I'm probably out of my mind, but I support this bill. We need safety in our schools, and this is one way to do it.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other comments from committee members? And please remember to address comments through the chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will. And I'm not going to counterpoint my colleague on the end, but I have watched television. And the instances of SROs body slamming kids on the floor, or SROs encountering kids and not being the solution but being the problem. I have seen that on television. So SROs aren't always the solution, they've been part of the problem.
Thank you. If we have no further comments, Senator Norman, you offered to bring an amendment, and as I'm reading the bill, this is specifically just focused on the grant. It's not addressing the question of whether or not we ought to have SROs. It's not addressing the question of the efficacy of SROs, but grants to provide equipment that might be necessary. I would ask not just for clarification in the grant process of what the equipment might be, but I would like to see some restrictions on the equipment, that it not be used to purchase any kind of weapons or tasers or handcuffs or restraining devices, as much as we can delineate it. But should it go to the purchase of uniforms or training materials or other ancillary resources that might be necessary for the school divisions, then I would appreciate that if you could present that amendment in full committee next week.
Yes, ma'am. I am not resistant to that. And I am aware of situations just like Senator Locke mentioned, but I've also seen where the intervention has had an effect at a situation not long ago in one of our local schools where a young man barricaded the door so that the teachers and students couldn't get out, and then started throwing furniture at the kids, and they had to all duck underneath of their desk, and ultimately the SRO was able to force the door open and get it under control. But I would not deny there are situations where there are issues, but looking at balance.
Thank you, Senator. So we can expect an amendment then, yes, perhaps next week. Okay. Is there a motion on the floor? With amendment?
With amendment.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting with amendment as suggested. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. We have 4 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you for your courtesies. I appreciate it very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Next on our sign-up sheet is Senator Spruill.
Madam Chair, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator. And what is the bill number?
Madam Chair, yes.
818?
I have, yes.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, you probably know that Senate Bill 856, I asked that to be stricken, the letter. You should receive that.
We did that this
Thank you
morning.
so much.
Thank you, Senator. And there is a substitute in front of us.
Substitute on 818.
Is there a motion on the substitute? Moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Madam
Please
Chair,
go ahead, Senator.
could we just want to go over, need to go over the substitute before I,
Yes, please go ahead and
Please.
present the substitute.
Madam Chair, Senator, what this substitute does is in subsection A at line 19, adds physical to physical and mental health, so that line 19 now reads, or I should read the whole sentence, I'm sorry. Such health instruction shall incorporate standards that recognize the multiple dimensions of health by including at each grade level an additional age-appropriate program or course of instruction on mental health so as to enhance student understanding, awareness, attitudes, and behavior that promote physical and mental health, well-being, and human dignity. And this substitute also incorporates the line amendments that were offered in last Thursday's public education subcommittee meeting, which were at line 36, which now make the sentence at line 36 or subdivision 7 read, understanding at such grade levels as the board deems appropriate the connection between mental health and substance use disorders and the safe use of and risks of abuse of prescription drugs.
Thank you.
Madam
Please go
Chair,
ahead.
thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, as of last meeting that was directed, as soon as we adjourned, outside the door, I met with those concerned. And Madam Chair, they gave me an earful. So I'll say, tell me what y'all want, and I'll live with it. So we came up to striking 856. That's the first thing. The second thing, there was some changes made, and one person, Madam Chair, followed me all the way from the Capitol to the Pocahontas building, and I was trying to be nice, and I was dead. So I said to myself, praise the Lord, that was over with. So now, Madam Chair, I say put it together, and I've worked with them. I believe we have someone, Madam Chair, from the VEA, I believe, hopefully, who worked with this bill that will recommend along with others that those who had major concerns, suppose that now they put this together for me, and I did not object to it. So if anyone here from the VEA and others who are here, please come up and speak for it.
Okay, thank you. It
Thank you,
looks like we have the VEA. Did you want to speak? VEA as well as our School Board Association.
Madam Chair, Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. Yes, we did meet. I don't know that all the stakeholders were in the same room at the same time, but I believe the senator spoke with all of us, and we agreed at first possibly to put together a work group with 856 and 818, but then we also agreed that if the senator wanted to defer 856, we would work on 818 to provide some type of curriculum structure on mental health awareness or some type of program. So I believe that he did address our concerns. I'm not sure if he addressed all the the other association's concerns, but I think he did address ours.
Okay. Thank you. And does SBA also want to speak? I thought I had seen you rise.
Yeah, I'm sure I was trying to read the substitute, but Stacey Ann School Board Association, we didn't have any concerns with the original language of 818, and the concerns I raised in the subcommittee last week were with 856.
856, yeah.
But I've had conversations with the senator, and so I don't believe that the changes have any concerns. So
Okay.
think we're still.
No heartburn over anything?
I don't think so, Madam
Okay.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Are there any questions or comments from committee members?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting the bill, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then that'll be 5 ayes with Senator Howell as well.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work on this. Next on the docket is Senator Peterson, but there he is. I didn't see you in the corner.
He's been enjoying this.
We didn't hear you singing.
Okay.
This is SB
This is
13.
SB 1329, and
Is there a substitute?
there is. Oh, wow, okay. Please,
Is there a motion for the substitute? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All say aye.
Aye.
Please go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. You may will see in the NFC Championship game, there will be a third-string quarterback that will be on the field, and that's, I'm basically filling that role, like Brock Purdy. This is Senator McClellan's bill with Delegate Coiner, and I was kind of brought in as a backup to run the ball in case one of those persons might ascend to a higher level of existence. Basically, what this has to do is called the parent data portal, and what it effectively does, and I may be working off the introduced bill, but is allow a parent to access effectively what the Virginia Parent Data Portal, allow how their child is doing in all state assessed tests, and then also match that up with basically what the mean is, what the average score looks like. And so you can get, for example, the SOL scores or what other scores that are state assessed, and then match that up by just going on the parent data portal. And this is just what they would have at the state level. Localities, local school divisions could also have, for example, any other standardized testing they had, or for that matter, they could have GPA. But it's just a tool for parents to have a quick and easy way to keep track of how their child is doing in their academics.
Madam Chair.
Please go ahead, sir.
Does somebody have a summary of what this amendment's doing that's different?
You know what?
And if I could just piggyback on that question, is the work group that's delineated on page 19 then, is that new to the original bill? And I'm forgetting what the original bill had.
I didn't see a work group on the original bill, but
19.
maybe staff can help me on page
19 and 20.
Madam Chair, the substitute does add a reenactment clause at the end and also sets up the work group. The thought was that the procurement process for this tool would be a complex one, and stakeholders wanted to get it right, so sets up that work group.
Thank you.
Great, so I've been sitting there 90 minutes while bill for a reenactment clause, okay. Wonderful. Got nothing else to do. Okay.
So much.
Yeah, I learned so much, right.
If I could just speak to the bill too, this really is coming out of some of the conversations and recommendations that both of the education committees had over the past year prior to this session, and I think it's a good recommendation coming from many parents as well. Are there any other questions or comments? Senator Peake, were you going to ask another question? Senator Donovan, go ahead.
I think I see the answer, but I just want to verify. Love it. Love the idea. I know it's technically hard to do, but teachers and other administrators that are engaged with the kid have the opportunity to see in the portal too.
That's a good question
it's
about
on
who has access.
349 at line 349. It talks something about it, but I just feel like we really are talking about a collaboration between parents and teachers
Right.
really do struggle to have access to some of this information too. And
Okay.
so I think that's what it says there.
It says teachers and principals in parent engagement on and interpretation of student assessment data. And that would be, I guess,
That would just be my only, make sure that
No,
that's
provide.
clearly included. I know that
Okay.
you don't want just anybody being able to go into the portal. It's kind of
Right.
like medical records protected, but a teacher that's teaching that child or something along those lines.
So, Senator Donovan, I don't think that that section addresses access to the portal. It begins
is-
with the guidance on high-quality professional development that will be provided to all individuals, and those are defined in that section. But if your recommendation is that we also ensure that teachers and maybe principals also have access to the portal.
Or maybe
I would think guidance counselors.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe we need to have somebody tell us who needs to be
Yeah.
on that list, but.
Well, like I said, it's going to a work group, so they got plenty of
An amendment
time.
in theory, maybe before full committee, that we could just make sure that those
Okay.
active interests are engaged in this.
I see staff have made note of your recommended amendment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? We have a gentleman wishing to speak in support.
Come on up.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Ethan Young. I'm a student in the State and Local Policy Clinic at the University of Virginia School of Law, and the views I express are my own and not those of the law school or UVA. I had the opportunity to develop this legislation with Delegate Coiner this past year. So today, as you've noted, Virginia lacks a uniform system to ensure that parents have access to their children's assessment data. And as a result, many parents do not have the information they need to partner with educators to make data-informed decisions about their children's learning. This bill before you offers a solution for parents and families. Contingent upon reenactment next year, it would empower Virginia parents by creating a centralized parent portal that provides access to state-supported assessments. So this includes standards of learning, growth assessments, VKRP, and the Virginia Early Literacy Screener. The bill also requires that this information be displayed in a timely and understandable manner, including straightforward explanations of each child's achievement. These explanations would also be viewable from a mobile device and in multiple languages to ensure that all parents have access. It also provides for professional development, which is the section that Senator Donovan was referencing a moment ago, to empower educators to engage with students about this data. And it also would place Virginia at the forefront of providing uniform parent access to data regardless of zip code. You've already discussed the work group and the plan to bring together a variety of stakeholders to discuss this over the next year, and I urge you to support Senate Bill 1329 to empower Virginia parents as partners in their children's education.
Thank you. And Mr. Riddle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. Shane Riddle, Virginia Education Association. Yes, that from the onset, that was our original concern. We do support the bill, of course, and it's a great bill. And we did speak regularly with Delegate Coiner in development. But our concern is the same as Senator Donovan's. We just want to make sure that the teachers receive the information at the same time or even before, because when the parent calls the teacher, we want the teacher to be prepared to talk with them about and the interventions that are needed to make improvements, just like a patient would do with their doctor. And so, that's our only concern. If we can make sure that the information is provided at the same time or clarify that.
Thank you. Yes, and I think we'll see that amendment added to it. So thank you very much. Is there anyone in opposition? It's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting the bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think we have 5 ayes there.
Awesome.
Strong word.
Mr. Non-controversial, that's me.
And who is on our next?
Come back next year.
Senator Chase. Okay. Are you in a rush, Madam Chair, to get out of this committee? I'm just debating whether to ask. Is that okay, Senator Chase? Well, I defer to Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll give you courtesy.
Thank you, ma'am.
And this is SB 1260.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee. SB 1260 renames the National Teacher Certification Incentive Reward Program and Fund as the National Board Certification Incentive Reward Program and Fund, and expands the eligibility for incentive grant awards for such fund pursuant to programs for solely teachers who have obtained national certification from the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. The bill also declares eligible for an annual incentive grant award in the amount of $7,500 all public school staff who have obtained or maintained such certification. Current law declares eligible for an annual incentive grant award of $5,000 in the first year and $2,500 in each subsequent year, all teachers who have obtained or maintained such certification. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I submitted a budget amendment for this legislation, and there are folks here who would like to testify should you need to.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee? Mr. Riddle wishes to speak in opposition to your bill.
Okay. No, I don't think so.
Come on, Shane. Come on, Shane.
Okay. Senator, thank you.
I was kidding. Just to clarify.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association. Okay, just a few quick points. The National Board Certification Program is currently in Virginia Code. How it's laid out, what the stipends are, and these annual stipends are added to the wages, to the wage structure for the teachers. So they're not considered like bonuses; they're considered part of the wages. And so this program is a very rigorous professional development program. And one of the reasons that we came and wanted to scale up and expand the program is we're competing with other states around us. And right now, North Carolina pays 12% supplement for NBCT certification. Based on an average salary of about $60,000, would be $7,200 annually. And then Maryland pays $10,000 annually for NBCTs. And so, as the senator said earlier, $5,000 in the first year, $2,500 in the second year, and thereafter. And so, what we're asking to do is to scale that up to $7,500 annually, and then also provide those teachers going through the program a grant to help pay the expenses for the program. Other states also provide this assistance, and so we would then be on par with those other states and provide. We believe that this could be a way to handle some of the retention problems in our schools with teachers leaving for various reasons, primarily because of pay in their 5 to 10 year range, maybe even more, up to 15 years. And then also, a lot of teachers, when they can't advance in the area where they want to stay in the classroom, it may prevent them from, making that decision to move to administration, but then to stay in the classroom where they're really needed and where they have a passion to teach. And so for these reasons, we strongly support the scaling up and expansion of this program, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
Several questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Riddle.
Yes, sir.
So how many teachers currently are eligible for this?
All teachers are eligible for the program. Once they receive continuing status.
But how many have continuing status now?
Oh, I'm not for sure how many have continuing status. Tom Smith might know the answer. Not for sure. I'm not for sure the answer to that question, sir.
Teachers who are not on probation have continuing status.
Yeah, that's right.
Is this all certified teachers in the Commonwealth? Madam Chair, Mr. Riddle?
Please go ahead.
Is this all teachers in the Commonwealth currently who are certified?
It could be, but many teachers, some decide to go and get their master's degrees, some decide to go and get their doctorates, some decide to keep their bachelor's and then go through this rigorous professional development program called the National Board Certification Program. So, and we believe that teachers are making the decision not to go through the program because the stipend is just, the expenses are there anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000 for the program, and then the stipend is just so low compared to other states that they just decide not to do
Madam Chair, I mean, this applies only to those who get the national board certificate, correct?
That's correct,
And we
yes.
don't have any idea how many there are currently in the Commonwealth?
That are currently in the program?
That are currently national board certified?
Oh, yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
We do have those numbers. I believe we have those numbers. Thought I had those numbers.
Maybe you want to phone a friend. Looks like a friend is coming.
A friend is coming, hopefully.
Somebody know anyone?
Do you know the number on that? Yeah. Good, okay.
Michael Malloy, Fairfax County Public Schools. There are over 4,000 teachers who currently have national board certified status in Virginia.
Thank you.
Okay, I did have that number, I just can't find it.
Does this impact the localities at all? Madam Chair, Mr. Riddle, Senator Lucas? Is there any kind of match?
Our
in the
understanding is that
localities?
this is totally a state program, and locals, it's permissive on the local level. They could add to, the board could decide to add to that stipend that the state gives.
But not the stipend, talking about the salary, when their salary goes up to 75.
Well, we call it a stipend, but it's
That's
actually added to
stipend,
their
okay.
wages. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a supplement is what we call it.
No mandatory match.
No mandatory match on the local level.
Okay.
No.
Yes, please go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just curious, it's cost $3,000 to $6,000 to initiate your certification? To do
Yeah.
the first program, and then how much does the maintenance year over year continuing education cost?
So the national board certification, which cost a minimum of $1975, okay, and if all components are successfully completed in 1 year, which there are 5, the process can cost some educators more than $4,000 if more time or additional attempts to achieve certification are required.
So they don't have to do something every year?
That's
Madam
correct.
Chairman.
That's
It's just
correct.
the once, and it's good for 3 years, or it's good for how long?
I believe the certification is, I thought it was 5 years, but it could be 3. I believe it's 5 though. Yeah, and then you have to recertify. You have to recertify after that period of time.
And then,
Isn't that right? Yeah. Oh, is it 10 years? Oh, okay, that's even better. Okay. I believe it was 5 at one time. It may be 10 now.
Madam Chairman, follow up?
Yes.
So if there's like 3 pathways you say teachers are choosing, there's this certification, there's a master's, and I can't remember what the
Doctorate program.
doctorate program. So do they get, if they go on and they get the higher degrees, are we paying them more?
Well, they would meet whatever the salary schedule is for each district for those for the master's program and the doctorate.
But is it escalated? So we're paying more if you get additional education, whether it's this certification or master's or doctorate. Okay.
Yeah, and I have an answer to your question on the maintenance of everything. So when an educator achieves the MBCT, they have to complete a 1-year maintenance of certification. And then that process is every 5 years to retain their MBCT credential.
Got it.
Okay. And it's portfolio-based process founded in the same fundamentals of the original certification.
Okay.
Okay.
And then just one more question, Madam Chairman.
Please.
The fund as it exists now, is it fully utilized every year?
Yeah, I'm
For the
pretty.
5,000, 2,500, 2,500, are we spending all that money?
Well, I'll answer it this way. It has been, I believe, in years past before the pandemic. I believe that in 2020, 21, we had a drop-off of teachers going through the program, and we believe it was because of COVID pandemic. Yeah. So we hope to scale that back up, and we believe this will help recruitment for sure if we scale it up.
And just follow up on that. So what happens if the fund runs out of money annually? Is the fund a discrete amount of money that it's either, once it's utilized, no other teachers can participate, or is this as many teachers as participate, we will pay?
I'm not sure of the answer to that question. I believe that's more of a legal question.
I would think it's our finance and appropriations
finance question. Yeah, I'm not for sure about that. That's a good question. absolutely.
We will be re-referring this bill to Senate Finance. So.
And like the senator said, there is a budget amendment. The estimated budget amendment is 8,900,000, and that's 13642S. If you want to look that up. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does that complete all your questions, Senator?
Do we know, one follow-up, do we know how much is in the fund now?
Yes, it's around. I believe it's around 5 million right now. I believe somewhere around there.
Madam Chair, I think if there were 4,000, I did the math. 4,000 times 7,500 came out to 30 million.
But that's how many teachers right now are currently
go into it and then ask. But we're going to need a lot more money in that fund, Madam Chair.
On an annual basis, I would say we don't have 4,000 teachers, right? We have.
Right, that's correct. That's correct.
And with our teacher shortage, this is something that we desperately need.
Right. Thank you. Any additional questions?
We believe. Of course, we believe that teachers should advance in their masters and their doctorate. But this we believe is a very good retention model for teachers, and is a very rigorous professional development program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
I believe we have two additional speakers in support of the legislation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I'm John Suswick with the Virginia Professional Educators. And by the way, Stacy and I looked it up. It is 5 years. Okay. I think initially, many years ago, there was a 10-year certification period, but somewhere along the line, it was reduced to 5 years. This is a worthwhile program. Your very best teachers become nationally board certified teachers. That doesn't mean that the others are less valuable, that the teachers who pursue master's degree programs or doctoral programs are not as good as the nationally board certified teachers. But we found that the nationally board certified teachers are excellent all around, and it's a worthwhile investment. And if we could give some money to the teachers who are preparing to become nationally board certified, that's a worthwhile investment too, because it is a long, arduous process. It's not a process that can be done just in a few months.
Right.
So we strongly support the bill, and we thank the Senator for introducing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You already a yes. 2 yeses. Okay. We'll just hear a quick thumbs up, maybe from. Okay.
Yes, real quick. The School Board Association has a strong position in support of providing substantial awards for the teachers who take the time to go through this really rigorous certification process. And I think that what the senator's doing gets us up to that. We think it should be a substantial award, and I'm not sure that the amounts that we provide now really qualify. And so I think that this would go a long way, and I would echo all of the VEA's comments as well.
Thank you. So I think one thing that we've heard is that this is the gold standard of professional development for faculty. We have a motion to recommend reporting. We have a second. Is anyone opposed?
Second.
Okay. I didn't think we had any opposition, so we've received a motion. All in favor? Aye. We have 5 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, I'm going to cut to the chase, and I'm keeping this mask on while I'm around.
That's your choice.
Senator Chase, thank you for allowing Madam Chair to go in front of you.
My pleasure.
And are we taking a look at SB 832?
I want to give you an update on that. What I would like
Before you begin, Senator, I just want to remind the audience that we had heard this bill 2 weeks ago, and we had received considerable public testimony, and for that reason, we are not going to be taking any more public testimony. So please go ahead, Senator.
So first of all, I want to thank Shane Riddle with VEA for going over some of the concerns that my parents had and what we've discovered with Senate Bill 832, which has to do with more educational transparency in our public schools, is that many of the issues and concerns that we addressed in this bill were concerns that should be taken up with the school board. And also, one of the things that I would like to do is send a letter to the Secretary of Education, Amy Gadara, so that she can be made aware. He was actually a bit surprised at some of the concrete examples that we had that were outside of the scope of what some teachers were being allowed to do. I think they were taking it on their own, that it was outside of the scope of what they were being allowed to do. For instance, taking medications, having an assignment in which a child was asked to go to their medicine cabinet and pull out a specific prescription drug that was outside of the scope. And we've identified a number of issues which he agreed were outside the scope. What we did agree to is to come back next year with a bill that has to do with a bill that protects the privacy of students. And we'll bring that next year. So for my recommendation for this bill, as many issues as we have addressed in here, we think that should be sent with a letter to Secretary of Education.
Thank you, Senator Chase. And your bill, SB 832, was, I think, identical to the bill that Senator Reeves had as well. And we had the same motion, and a letter is, we directed the chair to send a letter. Can you just remind me, is that correct? It was passed by indefinitely with a letter. So can we incorporate, would you be okay if we incorporated your bill with Senator Reeves?
That's fine.
So there's and if you could remind me the number of Senator Reeves' bill, is that possible? And if it's hard to find on the fly, shall we just make a recommendation that we incorporate it with Senator Reeves' bill that was PBI'd, and that will be...
Bill number to be determined later.
Yeah. 1180. Is it 1189? 99. Okay, that is the motion in front of us. We pass by indefinitely, or rather that we incorporate to Senator Reeves' SB 1199. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, Senator, for making that change.
Sure. Are you ready for Senate Bill 1463?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 1463, this bill is a transparency bill. It is not the code section is very misleading because it looks like it pertains to public libraries, but actually this is a fine-tuned bill which basically is addressing the literature that minors in public elementary or secondary school libraries are able to look at. And this gives a directive to each school board to require a parental advisory label to be affixed to the front of any book that contains sexually explicit content. As that term is defined, as it's defined in subsection A of 2.2-2827, and it's made available to minors. So I just want to emphasize this is not all public school libraries. We're talking about elementary and secondary school. The library board shall require a parental advisory label to be affixed to the front of.
Before you proceed, was there an amendment that we needed to? Because I don't see the current bill doesn't.
In line 16, line 17, it specifically talks about public elementary and secondary school library.
Yes, so, Madam Chairman, I'm
Yes.
confused as to why you're then saying it's only elementary.
I'm not. I said in public elementary or secondary school libraries.
So, Madam Chair, is either or? Or it's and?
So I'm just going to refer to line 15 and 16, where it says it's defined in section A, and that is made available to minors in any public elementary or secondary school library.
So I think, Senator, the confusion is that you said that this does not apply to every public school, but that statement,
for instance,
elementary and secondary school encompasses all public education, all public schools then.
Okay, so this does have to do with, I'm thinking middle school. It has to do with elementary, middle school,
yeah.
and secondary education. That should really be, we can amend that to mean middle school library.
So public elementary or middle
Correct.
school library?
Correct.
That's the amendment you want to make? Okay.
Okay. And the concern here is that, and I have a list of about 20 books, but I will spare you the reading of those lists, is that there are seemingly innocent titles of books that kids are bringing home with them in elementary school, and which the author of the book says that these books are for kids age 18 and older. So the author themselves and the publisher is saying these books are for children age 18 and older, yet we are finding them in elementary and middle school libraries, and not public school, and yes, in public schools, but not public libraries. I'm sorry, that's the differentiation. So that's the desire of this bill, is that parents want full disclosure of what books in their child's public school library is deemed, there's a warning associated with that. Not. We need to empower parents to make educated, informed decisions about materials that they would prefer that their child to not read without parental notification. And what this advisory label would do is to give parents a head up whenever, for instance, their child brings home a book from school. It alerts the parent that they need to look at that book a little closer before allowing their child to read it. That's the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? I think Senator Howell and then Senator Donovan.
I think if you label the books like that, that will just attract kids to want to read them who would have been totally unaware of them before the label.
Well, Madam Chair, I think the purpose of this is transparency with the parent, and you could probably be right. Kids would probably want to, check out the ones that have all the warning labels, but I also think that it's good. We don't also want to surprise kids. I know, a lot of kids are very conscientious and they don't want to read those books and they don't want to be surprised. I think this has to do with consent. Consent not only just from the child but for the parent as to what type of book they are reading.
Senator Donovan, you had a question?
Yes, Madam Chairman. It's really to follow up on maybe I didn't get an amendment.
No amendment.
But lines 18 through 21 talk about the library board and the Library of Virginia, and lines 22 to 27 talk about local governing bodies and library boards in the free public library system. So I'm trying to get my head wrapped around what's included in this. It's not just school libraries, it's every library.
No, this is intended for public school libraries only. This does not have to do with public libraries in general.
What? Can you explain the lines?
I wish I wrote the language for this bill, but we have to rely on the bill drafters. But if we can change that so that we are specifically targeting our public school libraries, that was the desire.
Madam Chair, if that's the intent, then I would move that we strike lines 18 through 27.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, that is amendment, and we
That's
have a
fine.
motion to.
That's fine.
You take it as a friendly amendment.
That's a friendly amendment.
Um,
I'm not an attorney.
Well, I think the problem, Senator, is that the way 2022 further down, all of that reads, it says any free public library. So that is problematic if you are
Sure.
seeking to address only our public school libraries. So all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The amendment is
And-
adopted, so we are
And
looking.
then, Madam Chair, a second amendment, which we never voted on line 16, and it says public elementary or secondary school, and so I move that we strike secondary and put in middle school.
Second.
And I think we should then also say and middle school
I
rather than
agree.
or. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we have another amendment. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are very small here. We have a parental advisory label to be affixed in the front of any book that contains sexually explicit content. Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this bill? We have a speaker coming up.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jenny O'Halloran on behalf of the School Librarians Association. Apologize to the patron, I didn't get a chance to give her a heads up that we oppose this bill. Schools already have, school divisions already have policies in place for informing parents. All public school library collections are available online for parents to view, and school librarians are professionals who develop their school collections in a way that's appropriate for the children in their schools.
You were running. Thank you. Thank you for that testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. I did stop by your office.
It's evening now,
Indicate-
Phil.
Oh, it's, oh, excuse me?
It's evening now. We started this.
Right. Sorry, I didn't think the bill was coming up today, and obviously the amendments improve the bill, but I share Senator Howe's concern. I think the idea of labeling books is really going to attract attention to them. And the Virginia Library Association does support our school librarians in their opposition to this bill. As I've said before, I really think this is in part about parental responsibility as well, and telling their kids what they shouldn't take out of the library. And if a kid is going to check out books like this after their parents have told them not to, they've got a bigger problem. And school librarians will work with parents. If parents tell them they don't want their children checking out any of these types of books, they will work with them and not allow them to check out those books.
So you are saying that there are policies in place that our school librarians typically follow in terms of making sure that
Correct.
Parents.
Correct.
Okay,
May I
thank
ask
you.
him a question?
You may.
My question is this: if I'm a parent with 4 kids, just hypothetically, and my child brings home a book that sounds neutral in nature, how am I as a parent supposed to read every last book that my child brings home if I have multiple kids? I mean, I think we need some type of label, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no, under the current system, there is no label, no warning, nothing that would alert the parent to any type of sexually explicit material in that book for our elementary school kids and our middle school kids, correct?
Correct. I appreciate the question. I think, parents are involved with their kids, and you're talking about pictures in the books, which I don't think are that hard to tell. I'm not aware, at least in elementary school, of any books like this there. I think there have been some issues in middle schools, but I think that's something that the parent can work with the librarian and ask them not to allow their children to take out any books that aren't appropriate for that age. I understand your concern, but I do think pictures are pretty easy to tell if there's a problem in the book.
But I think in the middle school level, that we're past the picture books, though.
I think we won't engage in a debate, but thank you for your comments. Senator Howell, were you going to say it? Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
I'll just say one of my concerns is violence. We seem to focus on sexual explicit material. I don't really care about that. I care about the gratuitous violence that children are exposed to, not necessarily through books, but through all of the other social media. I think that does far greater harm to our children. We have a motion to recommend this bill be reported. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other motion? Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend for reporting. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? We have 3 noes and 2 ayes, so this will be recommended not to move forward. Thank you, Senator Chase. Is that the only bill then for your last one for today? Okay, thank you. And Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand Senator Peterson aptly handled my first bill. So.
Aptly wouldn't be the word I used.
Okay. Well, successfully, I should.
Successfully, yeah.
Successfully.
Don't go near him for a while.
Okay. Senate Bill 1325 is my annual SOQ bill. As you know, every 2 years, or few years, the Board of Education recommends standards of quality, and it's up to the General Assembly to adopt and implement them. And we have made significant progress in the past 2 sessions. And what this bill does is implementing the SOQs that were prescribed by the Board of Education, maintaining continuity where the General Assembly made slightly different policy choices. For example, the school principal standard that we adopted last year. So a couple of examples of what's left to do. We would provide additional school counselors, moving from 1 per every 325 student to 1 per every 250. We would increase the number of student support staff who provide physical and mental health services. We would provide state funding for assistant principals for every 400 students, implement the ratio for instructors for English learners based on English proficiency level, invest in teacher and principal mentor programs, facilitate the development of relationships between school divisions and business communities to ensure meaningful work-based learning experiences, such as internships and externships. So that is the bill. I've brought it every year. I'm hoping this will be the last year I need to bring it. For a lot of reasons, but the main reason being that it passes.
Certainly hope that you can take this bill to the national level and make sure all of our schools are funded adequately across the country. So thank you for your good work and consistent work on this. Are there any questions or comments from the committee members? And is anyone here to speak in support? I would ask that we keep comments brief in support. Maybe just a thumbs up.
I mean, it's basically
Commonwealth Institute and Fund Our Schools Coalition strongly supports this, and thanks for patron. Thank you.
Thank you.
CASA's in support of the bill.
CASA's in support. Superintendents are in support.
VEA supports the bill.
VEA's in support. Okay.
School Board Association supports the bill.
Thank you.
Prince William Schools.
Excellent.
For Virginia's children.
Excellent. A very strong coalition, and I think that sends a message to all of us in the General Assembly how very critical and how very passionate so many of our communities are that we adequately fund public education. That is the core and critical part of our entire society. So thankful that you have this broad coalition and support.
Yeah, it will have to go to finance, but there is a budget amendment.
Well, we have the chair of finance sitting right here and seeing how strong a support we have, and she too is a strong supporter of public education. I can't imagine anyone will want to speak in opposition to this bill, but okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Move to recommend reporting and redirecting to finance.
That's right.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend for reporting and re-refer to finance. All in favor?
Aye.
You have 5 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay.
Is she coming for that?
Who is? So Senator Favola's bill is not going to be heard, and my understanding is that she is probably going to strike it. I just need to confirm with her. She is still working with her stakeholders on this, but we will confirm that. Senator Stewart is asked that his bill be passed by for the day, but of course, this is our last committee meeting, and so we will have to bring it to the full committee next week. That is SB 1023. We just got a alert for that. And Senator Dunavant, you have how many bills?
4, I think.
You have 4. Would you mind if I presented my bills? And because I've got, they all disappeared. They waited so long in the back of the room. Well, maybe they will come back. So, they were waiting here to speak to the bill, and so if you don't mind, if we can get them back in the room, I'll go ahead and start. And if I can turn the chair position over to you, Senator Locke.
Okay, let me find them. Okay, Senate Bill, which one do you want to do first, 1109?
I will do 1109 and 1118.
Okay, we have Senate Bill 1109.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 1109, if we may remember, we are trying to address the issue of English language learners. We also saw this concern in Senator McClellan's bill to increase the number of teachers that we have so that we can decrease the ratio of teacher to students that we have in our public schools. So both of these bills are trying to address that concern. Senate Bill 1109 is our college and career readiness for English language learners. It would create a grant program and fund to be established. This is a bipartisan effort, worked extensively with Delegate Avoli in the other chamber to bring both of these bills together, and we heard from a variety of stakeholders. This bill removes barriers to college and career readiness programs for our English language students, and it does it by providing reimbursement grants for school divisions for the documented costs that are related to the additional supports for English language learners to ensure that they have access to CTE and apprenticeship programs, as well as dual enrollment in AP courses and the IB programs as well. And it also provides our instructors with professional development and effective education in EL students. We've talked extensively to EL students, teachers, and administrators, and one thing that we have heard is that there are significant barriers for EL students who are facing career and college prep courses and programs. This is especially true for those students who come into our system at an older age and are struggling to learn the language, struggling to succeed academically, while at the same time acclimating to the academic programs. And so we have teachers who may not necessarily have background in EL, teaching and working with EL learners, but who have EL learners in their classroom. We see this in our data and our statistics. EL students are dropping out of high school at very high rates, significantly higher than the general population. And most of our states actually provide additional funding to provide professional development and wraparound services to help EL students reach their full potential. And Virginia just lags behind. And I think this is a critical indictment on our education system, that we are not doing what so many states around us are doing, and that is intentionally focusing on supporting our EL students and ensuring that they have access to the resources and support systems that they need in order to be successful. We have EL students that live in communities all across the Commonwealth. I think it's a misunderstanding that our EL students are just in certain locations and localities in the Commonwealth. And in fact, we have 1 in 7 students in Accomack, in Culpeper, Galax, who are EL students, and therefore all of our localities need this intentional support. So this particular bill is focused on college and career readiness for our EL students. And Madam Chair, we have individuals who want to speak in support of the legislation, if you would allow that.
Thank you, Senator Hashmi. For those who are here in support of Senate Bill 1109, if you could come forward, and we will take 5 minutes of testimony in support.
Madam Chair, Christian Martinez, Advocacy Specialist for CASA. I want to keep my remarks short so I can give them more time, but CASA is in support of both of Senator Hashmi's bill. EL students need your support now. Unfortunately, it seems that money has been the downfall for helping these students out, And we need to turn the conversation from instead of we tried to now starting that we did. And so we ask for your support on both of these bills, and I'll give them more time now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm redacting his testimony to you guys today. His name is Edgardo Matamoros, original from Honduras. 2 years ago, he immigrated to this country. He has been an active youth member to CASA organization for over 2 years in Fairfax County. He's a 20-year-old young man who studies at night, since during the day he has to work in a floor installation to be able to get a hand on this country. He wants the ESL benefit to be approved so he could study more and be sorry, I'm nervous, an astronaut engineer in the future. So he needs his ESL, approval for this law. The benefit for him is important to him and his family, since immigrating has to get a better future. Since his country, poverty, crime, and pure education is impossible as for youth people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm not gonna sit there. Hi, my name is
We need
Rosie.
you to speak into the
Go ahead,
mic.
sit there. Thank you. All right, I see. Hi, my name is Rosie Saavedra. I'm actually a Mexican. I've been living in this country for 32 years. I'm an active member of CASA for 2 years, and as an immigrant mother, I see the needs and the importance for the children to have better development in their English studies. Like us as parents, it's important to have more studies opportunity in order to speak English as a second language, since being able to speak two languages will help to have better development when it comes to this expressing ourselves in public. And the importance to be able to communicate. And I have that independence to be able to function much better before society without fear of being discriminated against. That's why the Latino community asks you for your support to follow the bill that will help us have many more opportunities in our personal lives in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, his name is Nervi Macias, a farmer by profession original from El Salvador. He immigrated to the United States approximately 17 years ago. Since then, Fairfax County has been his hometown. He's a father and family of 3 children, workers and owner of a gardening company from which he has 4 or more employers. He's here to contribute to economic and to the nation. So that's why he's here on behalf of our working class immigrants community with desire to improve his support in the required state funding to support the 23-24 school year for English learners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Jim Council representing Prince William Schools, I'd just like to add one note. I think we really lose sight of the fact that, for example, in Prince William, there are over 100 foreign languages represented. I mean, the challenges are so much broader than I think we typically think of it. So we will take all the help on ELL we can possibly get. Thank you.
Thank you. How much more time we got? 1 minute. Come on.
Madam Chair, Shane Riddle with the Virginia Education Association, also speaking on behalf of Fund Our Schools Coalition. We strongly support these bills. We really need, and my understanding is that this is a bipartisan effort also from 2 House bills that are on the other side by Delegate Avoli, and so we really appreciate that bipartisan support working together.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Emily Moore with Voices for Virginia's Children. Thank you to the Senator for bringing forth this important legislation, and we support.
Thank you.
VSBA, we have a strong position in support of providing funding for these students and these teachers, so on both bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey.
Legal Aid Justice Center, we support this bill.
Thank you. Anyone here in opposition? Okay.
And re-referring, I guess, to re-refer.
We would do the re-refer in the full committee. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1109 be recommended for reporting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Now we have Senate Bill 1118.
Senate Bill 1118, I don't think we need to hear further testimony. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is very much in alignment with the kind of issues that we were just looking at and addressing. One thing I want to just share, however, we had a conference in the early fall of this year and brought together many, many different voices and community members to address this issue. I am so delighted that our Teacher of the Year, Virginia's Teacher of the Year this year is Mrs. Fiona Parker, who is an ESL instructor, and so her innovative and Fabiana Parker, I'm sorry, I didn't, her correct name, her innovative and dedication to the working with her students has just been remarkable, and I'm so delighted that it's been recognized. But one thing we heard from her is the tremendous crisis in ESL, the fact that there are so few teachers who have certification, and even those who have certification are not engaged in teaching our EL students because of the kind of pressures that are facing them. There is a workload. Each teacher might have a caseload of over 70 to 80 students, and it puts tremendous pressure on their ability to adequately address and support the students who are in their classroom. And so we need to expand the number of instructors that we have, and this particular bill encourages more public school teachers to obtain an endorsement in English as a second language by creating an incentive program similar to what we just heard about the National Board Certified Teachers. So creating an incentive grant. This would provide, the Board of Education would award to any teacher who obtains such an endorsement an initial incentive grant of $5,000 and then a subsequent incentive grant of $2,500 each year that they maintain the endorsement and are retained in our public schools. Again, we're facing a severe crisis, and as we heard in Prince William County, we are looking at students who are coming from non-English speaking backgrounds that cover many, many Asian languages, Arabic, Hindi, Korean, Vietnamese also. We have a large population, and our teachers and our school divisions are struggling to provide the necessary support and resources. And so therefore, this is an attempt to address a challenge that we have.
Are there any questions?
Second.
Okay, just thumbs up for those who support. Any opposition? Okay. All right, so it's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 1118 be recommended for reporting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, so that will be recommended for reporting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Senator Donovan needs to leave. I have one more bill, but I will ask Senator Donovan. You have to leave too. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Do you have one bill?
No, I have a subcommittee to go to.
You have to go to subcommittee.
But do you have a bill first?
No.
No, oh, okay.
So you can leave me. You'll leave me my proxy. You'll leave your proxy with me. So thank you. Thank you very much. And Senator Donovan, please go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I'll start with Senate Bill 1173, and I believe there is a substitute. Thank you. Thanks so much. Madam Chairman, this originates...
To move the substitute.
Thank you. Move the substitute, yes.
All in favor of substitute?
Aye.
Thank you.
This bill speaks to advanced academic opportunity programs around the state of Virginia. And, specifically comes, unfortunately, the young man that spurred the bill is unable to come today. He would have had to have been on Zoom, and we can't do Zoom here yet. But bottom line is, we have advanced academic opportunities around the state of Virginia that have limited seats. Many of these programs award advanced academic standing with additions to the grade point average, and they turn away a multitude of kids Just in Henrico recently, for a leadership center that has 50 slots going to 75, there were 300 kids, 250 of which were qualified. And I've talked with the school board and superintendent. Those programs don't cost any more than the regular programs. So what we're doing is turning away engaged kids that want to participate in a rigorous academic program and just simply saying we don't have room. And in fact, we're picking winners and losers often as young as 8th grade because of the advanced academic standing that they have and the opportunities that those that come from the specialty centers are able to acquire as they apply to college. So, Madam Chairman, this bill speaks to what might define an academic opportunity, and you can see here that it includes magnet and language, to include but not limit visual performing arts, career and technical aptitude, leadership enrichment, but it does not include governor's schools. There's some special templates for that in some of the governor's science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM academies. Eligible students would instead of being put in a lottery or having some determination of how to choose between capable children, it would include any student who's demonstrated the ability to participate and succeed on merit-based application, on aptitude tests or exams, the recommendation of a teacher. And so basically what this does is it directs the Board of Education to figure out a way to kind of put together some guidelines that will, of course, include collaboration across the state. But we, as on principle, as a state, should be offering the most engaging, most advanced academic opportunity to every kid that we educate in public education that we can. And I think we need to move away from physical barriers and find a new way forward where every kid gets a chance. And, Madam Chairman, that essentially is the bill.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Senator Peake? Since the rest of the committee is not here. I will have some questions, but I'd like to hear from any members of the public who might want to speak. Is there anyone in support of the legislation? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Stacy?
Supported an awful lot of bills today. It had to come to an end at some point, Madam Chair. We have some concerns with just sort of the practical aspects of this. I don't take issue with the goal. We want to provide excellent programs for all of our students, but from a practical standpoint, it may be the case that the particular program in Henrico maybe didn't have additional costs, but some of the programs I think will have some additional costs. This includes, for just by way of example, career and technical aptitude programs, and those are going to have just some practical limitations, some safety limitations, some personnel limitations that, and it's not limited to CTE, but that's just one example, that we're going to be limited. We're limited on class size. We're limited on how many students a teacher can teach in a school day. So even if it wasn't more expensive to offer that as opposed to something else, just personnel limitations. And so I think that practically speaking, this is something that some school divisions will have difficulty with, but the goal, the idea, I certainly don't take issue with, but it's just it's in how the devil's in the details.
Madam Chair, can I respond to that? I totally agree. And I think it's really uncomfortable for us to have to change. And I think we got here with some really excellent programs, but I think we can change. That's why there's delayed enactments on getting things done, is that it gives the school board really a year, really just to the summer. And we can talk about delaying the enactments, but I think we can no longer keep going forward arbitrarily depriving kids of an opportunity for which they have the capacity. And so I'm hoping that that would be a conversation that would be had in how we implement. It's a new budget year next year. I know that there's a lot of investment and engagement in this, and I would say that is more of a really important point to point out as we figure out how to do it, but I am sensitive to that.
Yeah. Madam Chair, if I may, I appreciate that. I'm happy to continue the conversation with the Senator. some of these aren't arbitrary, from our perspective, some of the limitations are more practical than arbitrary, but I'm happy to continue the conversation.
Well, and I think CTE is something we really do have to talk about, and maybe a follow-up to the original bill, and we may need to think about pulling that out because there are safety limits and numbers and other things. And so,
Welding comes to mind as a, but thank you.
and Madam Chairman, to that point, I'll go ahead and strike that line, career technical aptitude programs.
What line is that?
That is line 15. That's something we had talked about, and I actually thought we had put in there, but that's just a little bit more of a challenge. And I think when we're building a new wheel, we should maybe leave that off and figure out how to do that later.
Okay, so we have an amendment presented.
Move the amendment.
To us. So, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Jim Council with
Please,
Prince
please
William.
sit down.
I just share the same problems with implementation that Stacy mentioned. And just looking at the language of the bill, for example, when we talk about arbitrary class size, I'm not sure how that applies to class size that's dictated by the standards of quality. That's just one example of the kinds of hurdles I think are sitting there waiting for us. So for that reason, I oppose the bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, thank you.
And Madam Chairman, I don't like that word either. And so, Madam Chairman, I would move to strike arbitrary, say prohibit imposition of class sizes or any other limitation.
And what line is that?
That is line 27, first line on the back.
27. Before we'll hear everybody in case there are any other amendments that need to be made. Okay. Please go ahead.
My name is Steve Marco. I'm on behalf of Arlington Public Schools. We have a number of programs that would fall under this, including immersion, magnet schools. We're a fairly large school division. We have many of our programs are specific schools. They have their own building, and there are just practical limitations to how many we accommodate. We try to enroll as many students as we can. We try to be as broadly available across the entire county as we can, but sometimes demand exceeds supply. We have a lottery. We try to accommodate as many as we can, but we appreciate what the senator is trying to do here. But I'm not sure the logistics of trying to fit more students into a school than it can accommodate.
And Madam Chairman, follow up?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a conversation I had with my district as well, and I do think that we need to have time for creative thinking, because you're right, you only have so much room in a physical building, but we may need to rethink about how we attribute space to, in other locations and in other schools. So it will take creative thinking, but I think on principle, we've got to find a way to make sure that if it's a public education, that we're letting them achieve to the highest level possible. And that may mean expansion of programs. I don't know your specifics. I know more about my own district. But we have similar challenges, but there are creative ways to think around most of those.
Okay, thank you. Any others?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, with apologies to the senator, I'm sitting here listening to the conversation. I'm Michael Malloy, Fairfax County Schools. Sorry. We've talked a little bit about the availability side, but we haven't talked at all about the administration side, because the guidelines that are going to be developed by the board are not simply about the availability of courses, it's also about the administration of those courses. So it's about the criteria by which eligibility is determined, but also how those courses are run. That typically is left to local school divisions and local school boards, and I think we'd prefer to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I had no intent for them to get involved in how you determine that your merit measurements or anything else. That's why it was left open.
Okay. Are there any other speakers? Yes. Thank you. We have a speaker.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Please go ahead.
Three places at one time. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, Tom Smith, the superintendent, for the reasons explained, we're also opposed to the bill.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. We've heard considerable. Senator, I have some of the same concerns about the practicality of the application of this. I think is quite I think it's quite a good move to make sure that our students are challenged, that our students who are top performing have every opportunity, but the practicality of having a system where anyone who is qualified is automatically accepted then presents the challenge that we've heard of large class sizes. We don't have enough teachers. I know particularly around AP classes, you have to have teachers who are credentialed to teach college level courses, and that is proving challenging just in our dual enrollment classes as well as the AP classes that we offer across many different systems. I think it's an effort that we should continue to look at, but I would recommend that you perhaps work with the folks who have spoken today and address these concerns that they are sharing and see how we might be able to craft a bill that would be able to address those larger issues. And perhaps we're not ready right now, just given the kind of other stress systems that we have on our school systems facing teacher shortages and so forth. And maybe that this might be a bill to evaluate next year in light of some of the changes that we will hopefully be able to make this year.
Well, I'd like to, Madam Chairman, I'd like to take it to committee and see what conversations we can have. I think we have to set the principles by which we design our expectations, and this has been a big debate. There's been talk of quotas and people being turned away, and I will tell you there was a young man who applied to multiple advanced academic opportunities in Henrico, who had more qualifications for any of them with grades and involvement in the community and things that he had done, and there was not room for him at any of those because there were 50 seats or 75 seats, and he was crushed. And he has got the ability to perform at that level, and he's not just one. That's one I know personally. There are several others that have called that we've tried to work on this, and at some point in time we've got to shift the goalpost for it to be about not having kids we turn away, not having to have quotas or debates about that, but just simply having access to the most events. Maybe we shift, maybe that becomes a larger portion of what we do. And the unknown is scary, but I think we can put some guardrails around how this is designed and people that are allowed to have input to that process. So I do want to move that amendment to remove arbitrary.
Okay. We have an amendment and a second. All in favor? Aye. That amendment has been added.
And then I move to report with the expectation that I'll be working with the stakeholders.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend for reporting. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? I will be opposed, and I will ask that Senator Howell and Senator Locke be reflected as abstaining.
Madam Chairman, next I have 1277.
Yes, please go ahead and present
Thank you,
the
Madam
bill.
Chairman. This is something that's done in many places across the Commonwealth, but not everywhere. There is an amendment, and the amendment strikes community-based. This also came from students at a presentation, a poster presentation they did at Freeman High School. They, too, cannot be here except by Zoom. But they were students that were in...
Senator, we have an amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry, move the amendment.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We have the amendment in front of us and the bill.
And so, Madam Chairman, their point was that they had less access to some of the fine art programs, and kids that were very ambitious in their academic pursuits were less interested in pursuing some of the, drama club and other things that were going on at the school. And almost at the same time, I had a business owner from Chesterfield who owned a restaurant and came and said, kids never work during high school anymore. And it's really affecting the business model because having full-time employees that we have to benefit is really challenging, but getting work experience for kids while they're in high school, and I noticed I really like that section of Senator McClellan's bill that talked about ensuring that every kid had some sort of workplace experience. But in any case, this is an ask for the Board of Education to look at finding a methodology by which they could award a half a credit in a semester for a kid who is participating in the appropriate number of hours of either of those two activities, so that we can kind of expand the reward for some of those less than purely academic pursuits that really enrich our kids.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Senator. Any comments, questions from Senator Peake? Okay. That is unusual for you, Senator. Okay. I've received some concerns from a few stakeholders, and especially folks in the arts community. I think one question that was raised is whether or not there was involvement from VDOE Fine Arts Coordinator, the Arts Education Associations, or the Virginia Coalition for Fine Arts Education in developing this particular bill.
I received the same, Madam Chairman, and I have no objection. They seem like the subject matter experts. I also wondered, not having a chance to talk with them and just getting that information, if that community-based that I was striking was not part of the concern. And so I think all of their concerns were really about quality measures to make sure that whatever was designed in the program. So I don't have any objection into putting an enactment clause on that would include those stakeholders. And I will get you that list, Council, if that's okay, because somehow that's not in this folder.
Okay.
But I have that flyer.
Okay. So possible amendment then that you will introduce next week. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report, and I'm going to abstain just because I would like to see some more clarification around what this might look like, and we should hear that next week then. So I assume we have 2 ayes, and we have 3 abstentions then. And your last bill, Senator, is 1281.
I think
you
I
have 2 more?
I think I do. Madam Chairman, I have 1281.
Yes, 1281. And there is a substitute. Let's move the substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
I'm not sure this is actually the right substitute, Madam Chairman, but we will go with this. I think we had flipped the programs. Basically, Madam Chairman, the intent of this bill is to start working on dual enrollment, and most particularly hoping and ensuring that dual enrollment will allow we'll prioritize, as we make investments in dual enrollment, credits and credentials that are transportable to post-secondary academic pursuits, be they a certification, licensure through the community college system and the new economy workforce, or passport credits. And, I think I have a personal experience where my daughter got 28 credits from dual enrollment at VCU while in Henrico in engineering. And when she actually went to her engineering program at Virginia Tech, they didn't accept any of them. And so I think we need to find a way that we make clear that if dual enrollment really means it's working for college enrollment, we need to utilize the programs in the state of Virginia that have established that those credits will be respected and accepted at every four-year university, and that's a passport credit. We heard this year at the Education Summit that with passport credits and that uniform set of credentials from community colleges, we were saving $20,000 on a baccalaureate degree for kids in Virginia. If we could get some of those credits, if we could make sure that the dual enrollment credits, some programs are doing, if we could ensure that the dual enrollment programs that kids are getting in high school actually counted all the way through to either an associate's or baccalaureate, it would just, it would help with the cost, and they'd hopefully be in a home where they're not worried about living expenses. So that's the intent of this, Madam Chairman, is just to find a way to focus dual enrollment on high priority investments like New Economy and Passport.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Senator Peake?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I have some questions, but I will reserve them to any public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support? Is there any who wish to speak in opposition?
Not opposition, Madam Chair. I had some concerns with the original language, but I think the substitute resolves those concerns. I will just offer for the patrons just food for thought. There was a JLARC recommendation sort of around this as well, that this bill's getting at it a different way. I don't know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. I'm happy to bring it by.
Is this out of the report in December? Or a different one?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's the one in December. And so I think it's two different ways to get at the same problem, but regardless, this does resolve the specific concerns that I had the bill, so I thank the patron for working on it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Took care of us too.
Move to recommend reporting.
Just let me just.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You had some questions.
So, are you asking for the board to develop additional guidelines and policies because we have guidelines and policies, or are these going to be additional guidelines and policies?
I think one of the challenges on dual enrollment, Madam Chairman, is that we kind of got the cart before the horse, and we said we want dual enrollment, we want to have this academic rigor for our students and this opportunity to get these transportable credits, but it didn't really work out that way, partially because of education challenges with the credentialing with the community colleges for the dual enrollment programs, and I do have a bill that will be in another subcommittee to help address that. But we did not really set clear expectations for what those dual enrollment credits would translate to and if they would be portable. There was an assumption there would be, but that hasn't worked out that way, as evidenced by my daughter's program that got those 28 dual enrollment credits that didn't materialize into anything towards college, and but also lots of other programs that have come up because there's a teacher that has a particular interest, but they're not transferable credits to college. So while we don't want to negate those programs, we just want the priority to be actual dual enrollment credits that are portable to a post-secondary degree, some sort of credential.
Thank you, Senator. And did you speak with the VCCS representatives and consult on, since majority of our dual enrollment credits are the pathway is through our community college system?
100%. And also the New Economy workforce is with them, with all of those credentials. And so, yes, and we're working on a bill where there will be more exchange between community colleges on this mission and K-12 that both the Board of Education and community college are excited about.
Good. And just to echo what you said, I think there's some of the sticking points are around credentialed faculty to teach college level courses at the high school, in the high school context, and so that has always been a consistent issue and concern. Is there a recommendation on the floor?
Please recommend to report.
Second. Been recommended and seconded that we, it's been moved that we recommend for reporting, and I am going to abstain. I'm not sure how Senator Locke and Howell will vote on this, so we'll have 3 abstentions and any ayes. We have 2 ayes and 3 abstentions on this bill. And you have one more?
Ma'am, I have 1481.
1481.
1481, Madam Chairman, is just really to codify expectations that schools will report results of awards that are recognitions in the most timely manner. And I know a lot of different processes are being built to make sure this happens, but we want to make sure that some of the challenges we're seeing now don't happen again.
Are there any speakers on this particular bill? Anyone for?
So I'm Sandra Davis from Fairfax County, and I came here today to talk about the fact that my son actually is a commended scholar, and he was notified of this award in time to apply early decision to Virginia Tech, and he did get in. He also got into another school out of state and actually got $48,000 in scholarships to go there if he wishes to. But the point being is that there were children that were not notified and their parents were not notified. And there are parents that don't speak English as their first language and don't know how to navigate College Board and merit. And the commended scholars are not notified other than through the school. The finalists, semifinalists are. There were many schools involved besides Thomas Jefferson. And 11,000 students have left Fairfax County, and the budget's in a crisis because of that. Military retired there for advanced academics, and people immigrated from countries like Cuba, Venezuela, China for equal opportunity. Universal pre-K and funding after-school programs to teach children about these kind of opportunities are acceptable. But leveling the playing field at the end is not acceptable, and merit matters, so I support this bill.
Madam Chair, I have a comment and a question. First of all, congratulations to your son, and don't let him go out of state. Make sure he goes to Virginia Tech.
He stays here.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
second, you said 11,000 have left Fairfax school system in the last, how many years?
Probably since COVID era.
2,
Then
3
the schools
years.
were closed.
All right.
That's their own numbers. They spoke about it in their working session.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have another speaker.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Melissa Velasquez, Assistant Superintendent for Policy and Communications at the Department of Education. We want to thank the Senator for her leadership in this area, and the administration does support this bill.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition?
Madam Chairman, if I can just say something.
Well, I would like to say something too, but you go ahead.
I honestly believe that our educators are working in the best interest of our kids. And I don't know what's going on. I don't think it was anything malicious, but I think that we can take a step forward by saying this is exactly what the policy is going to be and this is what we're going to do. And we'll just make it clear and be done with it.
I'll go ahead and say and let you wrap up. May I comment as well?
Please go ahead.
In response to that, I don't think it was malicious, but I think it was clearly intentional. I think it was clearly intentional by the Fairfax School Board or school authorities that in their quest for equity that they don't want to recognize achievements by individuals. And I think it's a horrible precedent to set. It is terrible, and we should recognize individual achievement at every opportunity and encourage people to do their absolute best, and there is no guarantee of an equitable outcome. And when some people do extremely well, we need to congratulate them and recognize it, and I think it was an intentional act on the part of the Fairfax County school system.
Thank you, Senator. I'll just add opposing comments to that. I don't think it's to the benefit of any school division or any school principal to underrate its highest achievers. In fact, I think all school divisions want to tout the successes of their students and how well their students are performing. And in fact, we compete for that, don't we? We set up these standards and we expect students to do well, achieve well, and we want to highlight those achievements, and we do that effectively. I don't think there was anything nefarious here. You know, my daughters, they were a long time ago, and I don't want to get into personal examples, but had similar experiences of either getting a commendation or getting finalist letters. Clearly, this is one part of a student's success. I don't think there's any college or university that accepts or rejects students on the basis of whether they got a commendation or a finalist or a semifinalist. It's part of the total package of a student's achievements. And so a total student's records would be reflected in terms of that admissions process. It's part of the decision making that any admissions committee will be making. So I find it very problematic to put this into our code that we are going to be insisting that something that schools do already is going to be part of our code with the specificity, especially around PSATs and our National Merit Scholarship programs, which is an outside organization too. I think that's an important point to make, that is an outside organization that works with school divisions, but is not directly connected to them in recognizing the students' achievements. I don't see any rational argument by which a school would not recognize its highly qualified students and want to show their success and prevent that from being displayed. So I just would offer the opposing argument to what you said, Senator Peake. Is there a motion on the floor? It's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting. All in favor? We have 2 ayes. We're going to have 3 noes on this. This is a bill that I did speak with Senator Howell and Locke on. So 2 to no, 2 to 3, and the bill is recommended not to be reported. And we have one final bill, if I'm right. My bill? Okay.
I've got one too.
Okay, Senator, you were hiding. You have another bill?
Yes.
Okay. 964. Please go ahead. I did not mean to jump over that.
Well, I know what you were doing, Madam Chairman. I've got a bill here.
I was being sneaky.
I've got a bill here that's going to be highly successful, and you wanted to make sure the room was empty when I got one that passed. Hi, Senate Bill 964. This is a pretty simple bill. We have mandatory school reporting for up through the age of 5, and this will allow private daycares, so those schools who are enrolled in private daycare from ages 4 to 5 to count that as being enrolled in school, and that will expand opportunities for parents to keep their children in private daycare through the age of 5. And there's a similar bill being done for public schools as well, but this one just addresses the private school setting. We're going to try and put public schools and private schools on the same footing so that kids who are held back, later birth dates, whatever, and when they're in daycare, they will still be counted for enrollment, mandatory enrollment purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Do have someone to
Thank
speak
you.
to the bill.
We have a speaker for it.
Yes, ma'am. Just briefly, Melissa Velasquez, Assistant Superintendent for Policy at DOE. This is an agency bill. This makes a technical change. So those kids who are 4 years old, of school age, but 4 years old and will turn 5 by the time of September 30th, that they qualify for that. So it'll expand that opportunity for them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have 59 speakers in opposition, Senator Peake, to your bill. You think me malicious, but that is not the case. This sounds like a good and reasonable bill to me. I recommend that we report the bill, and I assume you second it. And we will vote our proxies and assume we have 5 ayes on this.
All right, 5 ayes.
There you go, unanimous.
Somebody take a picture. Where's the board?
Okay. And so now am I correct that we have just one final bill, and that is mine? Okay, thank you. This is SB 1334. We have a substitute. And I will move the substitute, and Senator Peake seconds it, and all in favor, aye. So this particular bill emerges from the goal of making sure that we have opportunities in place for a code of ethics around our IEP meetings, that all stakeholders, everyone who comes to the table, is part of a process that's structured, well-maintained, and that there is an agreement on what the format and structure of the engagement is going to be. That the bill has received some comments and discussion from a variety of stakeholders, and so we did meet with our Disability Law Center folks. We also spoke with LAJC, ACLU, and received comments from parents. And I was in agreement that the original draft of the bill seemed to exclude the voices of the parents in this process, and so we have reached an agreement with several of the stakeholders that in this substitute that's now in front of us. And I'll just basically read it since it's brief enough to read, that the DOE, in consultation with the Disability Law Center of Virginia, the Parent Educational Advocacy Training Center, as well as other stakeholders, shall develop a code of ethics relating to appropriate collaboration at individualized education program IEP meetings among school staff, parents, students, and any other participants that are invited with expertise or knowledge of the student to be referred to as a code of ethics. So it basically is charging VDOE to work and consult with the full breadth of stakeholders and to develop a code of ethics for special education meeting participants. And that this code of ethics shall be consistent with the Council of Parents, Attorneys, and Advocates voluntary code of ethics, and as well as the Superintendent of Public Instruction's memo, which was issued in 2016, and that collaboration among parents, parent advocates, and professionals in IEP meetings shall include provisions affirming the rights of parents to collaborate and participate in the IEP process. And so that is the substitute in front of us. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak today in support of this substitute? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, member of the committee.
And actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to turn it
Mr.
over
Chairman.
to you. My apologies.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, appreciate this
We
opportunity.
have a witness, Mr. Asip.
Yes, thank you,
please,
sir.
go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Mike Asip, speaking for the Virginia Council of Administrators of Special Education. And just saying, appreciative of the Senator Hoshby for bringing this bill forward. This is a bill to make peace and to try and make some peace in the Valley. There are situations where parents have advocates to support them in their asserting their rights that are protected by federal and state regulation to provide services for their students through the IEP process. This fosters civil conversations, civil meetings, addressing the many, sometimes complicated issues before IEP meetings. The student must remain first in these meetings, and appropriate parental support through advocates helps them through the process. Unfortunately, sometimes there are disagreements with those, and they become adversarial in some tones in some situations. As we go through due process or IEP facilitations, there's a state complaint process, there's state mediation. Senate Bill 1334 in no way interferes with the ability of parents' voice to be heard and to invite any person who has expertise or knowledge of their child in special education meetings. VCASE, our organization, has heard from a significant number of school division special education coordinators, as well as principals, superintendents, reporting that some advocates have unfortunately conducted themselves in meetings in offensive manners. These have included repeatedly interrupting IEP meetings and disrupts required discussion, injecting ad hominem personal, verbal, and abusive name-calling towards school personnel at meetings, and in social media. and continuing this in social media. Encouraging parents not to mediate, not to meet with staff to resolve differences, which causes delay in services. So this is not all advocates. I've worked very constructively with many advocates over the years in my career. But students miss receiving services, Mr. Chairman, because there's a delay tactics that go on in some of these meetings, and not with divisions not able to provide services in a timely manner. Staff at the brunt of verbal abuse and vilification are resigning from special education. I heard a report today about a second-year teacher who resigned upon walking out of a meeting and saying, I can't do this anymore. The tone, we would just like a civil tone in our processes of IEPs. So abusive and delay tactics that delay services for students, they affect our chronic staff shortages and critical staff morale concerns, but also delaying the services and the quality services that we bring to the student. We're thankful and ask your support for Senate Bill 1334. We, in the substitution before us, we really want to collaborate with others and have the Department of Education collaborate with stakeholders to develop a code of ethics. And here's a couple of phrases from the code of ethics, in case you want to know. Communicate with others in fair and civil way. Treat all parties subject to dispute with candor, fairness, and civility. With a code of ethics, effective collaboration with parents and advocates, Virginia students with disabilities will win. So we appreciate your support of Senate Bill 1334. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in support of the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I am.
Shane Riddle, Virginia Education Association.
Nice to have you back in
Yes,
front
sir.
of my committee.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
look forward to hearing your testimony on the patrons' bill.
Yeah, do you have any questions for me, Mr. Chairman?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We are in support of the bill, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the bill? I'm going to limit this to 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, member of the committee. Mr. Chair, yes, excuse me. Good afternoon, Bev Lammy, Henrico Schools. This is one of our legislative priorities of our school board. We really are equating this process almost to the kinds of Robert's Rules of Order that we have when we conduct any meeting. And these meetings are really necessary. I mean, our special ed laws, procedures are really complicated. Our parents struggle to understand what they have an option to do with their child, the best services that are available. So that's why the role of the parent advocate becomes very important. But as Mike has highlighted, I think we've kind of gone off the trap. Well, I don't know what the track, but we've kind of gotten out of hand in a bit. And our teachers really feel like they almost need someone in their corner, as well as the parent having the parent advocate. So I'm very, very excited about this opportunity that Senator Hashmi's put in front of us about developing a code of ethics, working with our Board of Education, working with our other groups to try to develop a process and a procedure that will help us and get to the mission, which is to get our student and our child in the best place possible to be successful.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor?
I won't even sit. I'll just very quickly say I'm Troy Seward from the Virginia Academy of School Psychologists. We're in strong support of this. I have psychologists tell me all the time about, disrupted IEP meetings, and in times really have to close that meeting and reschedule. So it needs, hopefully this is a big step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor? Now, anyone in opposition? Oh, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tom Smith, Superintendent's Association. Well, we don't have an official position on this one. I wanted to make a statement on it. I want to applaud the patron for involving the groups that she has. I first got involved with special education in 1976. It has been the heart of what I've done for over 40 years in education. It is a difficult process. It is a good process, but it's a difficult process. And any guidelines or any guide rails that you can put on that when people sit down, all around the table are often very passionate, very caring, but very passionate about what's going to happen at that meeting. And they're very passionate about their children, on both sides, the teacher and the education side as well as the parent. So by including Pizzi and including the Disability Law Center, I think you've gone a long way to try to get to where we can do with that rail. One of the things I was able to do in some years ago was I chaired the State Special Ed Advisory Committee for the State Board, and I did that for 4 years. We had these same people there, and we were able to work through things based on people sitting down with some guide rails and some understanding. So I think this bill is a good step, and I want to applaud you for bringing it, and I want to ask you all to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else in favor? All right. Anyone else in favor? Now, anyone in opposition to Senator Hochby's bill?
Good afternoon. My name is Candace Lucas, and I'm an advocate, a special education advocate. I'm also a licensed educator and administrator. I've convened over 1,000 IEP meetings. I've overseen 1,000 IEP meetings. I decided to become an advocate because I knew that parents' voices through the IEP process are being silenced by administrators who, as the JLARC report from 2020 indicates, do not know how special education works. They do not know how to implement special education training, and they do not know how to conduct IEP meetings. And what we have found is this bill is a backdoor way by VCASE, by the VDOE, to undermine the authority of the parents as well as the advocates. We're very concerned that parents were not included in the birth of this bill when they are equal members of the IEP team. In essence, the development of this bill without the parents' participation, it actually shows what happens in an IEP meeting. Decisions are already made, and then the parents are brought in afterward. So this bill went through the same process. In our experiences, what we have found is that what is considered disruptive in IEP meetings is when parents ask these questions that are set before them in the IEP. We ask for data, we ask for records, and whenever the school division staff cannot answer those questions, you're deemed disruptive. And then you call the police. And my ancestors went through the same thing when we tried to vote. My ancestors went through the same thing when we tried to attend public schools. They were asserting their rights. When parents assert their rights, when advocates assert their rights in IEP meetings, at that point they become a problem. Now, the JLARC report, as well as our work with Senator Donovan, we were successful in passing SB 1288, which required that every individual who participates in an IEP meeting participate in mandatory training. That has not happened yet. And yet this bill is being proposed, and we have administrators by JLARC's own token that are not qualified to oversee special education. This bill is very dangerous. It is going to target black and brown communities because of predominantly white administrators who may feel as though our communication style is not acceptable, is disruptive. I had John Eisenberg, who used to be over the Virginia Department of Education, who told me my presence, just sitting in a meeting, was disruptive and made others uncomfortable. So you giving them this key without really understanding IDEA and understanding the dynamics of the IEP team and the fact that the IDEA is a civil rights law. IDEA is a civil rights law. It is not to be weaponized. It is to be utilized to ensure that families are protected from school divisions and from administrators who want to silence them. In closing, I will state this. JLARC specifically stated, despite emphasis on inclusion, Virginia does not prepare administrators or staff with the necessary special education skills to implement IEPs or IEP meetings. We are finding that parents are more equipped and more trained than the school division staff is. As a result, that creates an adversarial situation. And as a result of that, the ones that are in power, which are the administrators, usually assert that power to silence the parents. So this bill in no way facilitates the IEP process. Complying and enforcing SB 1288 to train teachers so they're not frustrated, to train case managers so they know how to implement IEPs. At no point in all of the years that I delivered or I convened over IEPs in Henrico County did I ever have to stop an IEP meeting, or did I ever have to deal with any type of disruptive behavior, because we empowered the parents. So this bill is going to silence parents, and it's going to give school divisions power that they don't have under the IDEA, school divisions that are not qualified by JLARC's state, stating that they're not qualified to implement IEPs. So I don't understand why you would allow them to determine who comes to the meetings, who can participate in the meetings, and more importantly, the code of ethics regarding the meetings. COPA's code of ethics is very clear. If the school divisions complied with SB 1288, we wouldn't have to deal with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in opposition to this bill? Any? Okay, come on up. Identify yourself.
Sandra Davis from Fairfax County, and in our division, it is more likely that parents are sued than worked with in these meetings. And there's also retaliation against parents who do speak up. Their children are in the school, and so to bring up difficult topics with their children in the school, this just adds salt to their wounds.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else in opposition to the bill? Any further comments? Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to wrap up, we certainly heard from parents who were concerned, legitimately concerned about the original bill. We heard from LAJC, Legal Aid Justice Center, as well as other parent advocacy groups, and they raised their issues. And so the substitute seeks to respond to that. I hope we've received some degree of peace in the valley. So again, the substitute is asking our Department of Education to bring together these various stakeholders, including our Disability Law Center, the Parent Educational Advocacy Training Center, as well as other significant stakeholders, so that there can be some agreement around the structure of what these meetings look like, and develop a code of ethics in collaboration so that everybody feels that their voice and their particular concerns are addressed in that code of ethics. And I am hopeful that we will be able to resolve some of the issues that we've seen in our IEP meetings. I know, as we've heard, they're very sensitive, but they bring together people who are passionate about the child and the issues of the child, and the focus should always be on the child and what we can do best to support the children in these situations. And just to reiterate, in addition to the folks we heard in support, this was one of the top priorities of one of the localities I represent as well by the school board. It was presented to me, and so therefore I am trying to meet the needs of the various stakeholders as well as the districts that I represent, And so, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hashmi, and as you know, this committee operates by motion. I'll entertain a motion.
We recommend reporting this bill.
And I just comment, and I'll tell you that Senator Donovan left me her proxy and had marked it a no, and I know that was before she saw the substitute. So we'll go ahead and vote no, and give us opportunity to go over this with stakeholders. Our concern was the concern raised by the speakers about the parents, so I'll do that. But do you have a motion?
I think I made the motion to recommend reporting.
And do you have a second?
I second it too, by Senator Howell.
All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
And no, all noes, Donovan and Peak. And now that...
You're a no, I'm sorry?
I'm a no, yeah. Go ahead and stick with, and then we'll look at 2 noes.
2 noes, 3 yes.
And then while I'm still chair, I guess we might want to go back and look at several of these other bills that failed to report.
At your discretion, Mr. Chair.
Back to chairman.
Well, thank you to everyone who's been patient through this very long meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.